I'm running this monkey farm now, Frankenstein!
I know I'd go from rags to riches.
Why, a 4-year-old child could understand this report. Run out and find me a 4-year-old child. I can't make head or tail out of it.
Or will I go?
Faravelli, you've got the brain of a 4-year-old boy, and I bet he was glad to get rid of it.
My fate is up to you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to YLS, the Top 100 Scenes series. I hate the Breakfast Club and love John Cassavetes. It's me, Kirk Kolakowski. No, I'm not going to do that. But anyway, we got a good panel for you tonight. As always, it's the same panel that's been like the past whatever many weeks. Anyway, Jack, do you think you will fare better or worse with me on the panel tonight?
I don't know, because there's certain picks I have that I think you will like a whole lot more than Kirk, but then again, there's picks on this list here that Kirk would have really liked. So I don't know. It should be interesting though.
That's fair. Cody, you can just, make my life worse if I'm too mean to you tonight. So that's probably a comforting.
Yeah, if I win tonight, justice has been served. If I lose, that means King's been biased. So, there's a lot of things that I can invoke right off the bat. But no, I'm excited for the show. I'm kind of upset because I think there's a scene on my list that would have done really well in Kirk's eyes. But the immune system of everybody on this show is very low because we're 2 for 2 in sicknesses, so this is a great time. So
that's valid. Hey, Paul, where's Jake? You know where Jake is? Okay, Jake,
this
you
is
want to
unremarkable.
What are you doing?
We gave away an In-N-Out t-shirt from 2 Australians.
I think we just watched a scene from Inland Empire right there.
I just went to get a drink. I don't know what the hell he's doing.
Not as good.
It's not convincing when they have an American t-shirt on.
You changed the shirt, Paul. Why didn't you realize that?
Jake, did you hear that? I was like, "Hey, Paul, where's Jake?"
Oh, I heard everything. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. That was your time, Scott.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Worse.
Yeah, genuinely, that kangaroo mask does look like one of the rabbit masks from Inland Empire. But no, I'm happy to be here. I was saying beforehand, I actually think I'm going to do better. Significantly better. This could have been one of my worst weeks if Kirk had been here. And obviously he's going to be the judge of the final list. So I'm sure I would get my consequences in due time, but we can delay them a little bit longer tonight.
That's valid. Well, anyway, Jack, we'll start with you for your 40 through 38.
All right. My 40, one that Kirk would have really liked had he been here. The blood test from 1982 is The Thing. 39 is Day 6 from Prisoners, or the car scene from Prisoners, which I think Cody had as well last week. And 38 is the boulder scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Okay, then. The blood test. This scene is brilliant. Carpenter is perfect at crafting tension, and this scene is one of the most tense scenes I've ever seen in film history. It's basically, at this point in the film, everyone believes MacReady is the Thing, and so in order to prove both his innocence and to find out who's actually the Thing, he has every single person in the crew tied up in a room, and he draws blood from them all and heats up a needle and starts poking at the blood because well, in order to figure out who the thing is. And this scene is brilliant. I saw it in the theater with my uncle, and that was one of the greatest movie theater experiences ever. But having seen it a couple more times since then, this would be higher if I were to redo this list today. Probably top 25. It's incredible. Day 6, Prisoners. This is the scene this is the scene that I think of every time I think of Prisoners. There's plenty of scenes that I could have picked. Any scene between Paul Dano and Hugh Jackman. The car scene at the end of the film, but this is the scene I picked. It's possibly Hugh Jackman's best just moment I've ever seen him on an acting level. He's at his wit's end here. He basically, he's walking to the house that he's keeping Paul Dano in. He figures out that he's being followed by Jake Gyllenhaal. He walks into a liquor store nearby. He goes to Jake Gyllenhaal and asks him why he's following me, and gets invited into the car. And he explains that he hasn't had a drink in 9 years, and he's at the absolute end of his rope. And he says, "It's been 6 days since my daughter's been taken. Every day she's wondering why I'm not there to protect her." It's heartbreaking. I can't think about this scene without getting emotional. It's such a tough scene to watch, and Jackman sells it. Brilliant.
And did you say you had this one last week?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can talk about it now.
Yeah, I think this is the scene from Prisoners I like. I like the overall movie, but this is the scene where he's just like, basically he's like, sorry that I'm doing everything I can because my daughter's wondering why I'm not there. So and then he goes through the spiel of, like, you know, after 48 hours hardly anybody's found, after a week, and then a month no one's ever found again, blah blah blah. And Jake Gyllenhaal reminds him, he's like, it's not been 7 days, it's been 6. You're right, 6. And he's like, sorry if I'm not the guy I'm supposed to be in this moment. Like, he lets his real emotion. And I've said on YLS before, like, Hugh Jackman's hit or miss for me as an actor. I don't think he's that great of an actor because he falls into the tropes of playing Wolverine for so long in his career. So then when every time he rages, it sounds like, you know, his claws are about to come out. But in this scene, you can just feel the real passion about him losing his kid, and not his daughter, and not getting her back, and the weight of everything, because he's questioning him about the loss, which he's clearly got locked up. He's completely descended into madness at this point, and there's no way to get out of it. So I think it's the best scene from Prisoners.
Yeah, and then my 38 was the boulder scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is one of the greatest introductions to a character ever. Indy is one of the most resourceful people, and you find that out seconds into this film. And it's one of the most iconic scenes when he takes the bag full of sand, quickly switches it out with the idol, and he thinks he's all good, and then he hears he hears like the clicks, and he realizes shit and bolts it because he knows something's wrong, and the boulder comes down, and he's running away from the boulder. It's one of the greatest opening scenes in an action film, just in film in general. Harrison Ford, a great introduction to one of the greatest characters ever put to film. It's one of Spielberg's best directed scenes. I love this scene. I could watch it any day.
Yeah, so your 40 was the blood test from The Thing. This is a great scene. Like, this is a fantastic tension builder of just like going through every person, and like I think that's part of like where the tension comes from, of all the people beforehand who have their blood tested and they're fine, and you're just like, well, it has to be. Just the way that window just slowly shrinks of who it has to be before the actual reveal is great. Yeah, great scene, great pick. You're 39. Day 6 from Prisoners. This is a good scene. I don't know if I'm high on it as you and Cody are. For me, like, this doesn't hit a top Prisoner scene for me. I don't really think of this moment. It's a good acting performance moment. It is probably Hugh Jackman's best moment in the movie, so I get why you would pick that, Jack, because you're obsessed with the guy. But overall, this isn't a bad scene by any means, but it doesn't necessarily tilt the needle for me either. And then 38, yeah. Well, the fact that no one else had this, I kind of judge you all, because this is, I know it's a basic pick, but sometimes a chocolate chip cookie is a chocolate chip cookie. You know, it's basic, but are you really going to turn down a chocolate chip cookie? And that's how I feel about the Boulder scene from Raiders. Like, yeah, it's basic, but it's basic because it is so good. So yeah, no, the Boulder, like, this is a great way to introduce the character, and like now going back to the hat is like such like a cliche, like, oh yeah, but like it wasn't at the time, and it really is such like a great character moment of, yeah, this is the action protagonist, but yeah, he's gonna go back for his hat and like grab it, and he's not just gonna leave it alone. And I think that's like just a great little character building introduction moment. So yeah, Raiders, great pick. Cody, over to you for your 40 through 38.
Well, yeah, you got to realize that's Jack's list. It's a lot of the chocolate chip cookies, not a lot of substance, because he doesn't know how to talk or like any of these scenes. He just wants to make sure he doesn't miss anything. And yes, chocolate chip cookies are good.
But if there's a bowl, I need to address something in the chat because someone just made the most psychopathic decision. You take an oatmeal raisin over a chocolate chip?
Depends on the mood.
My dad. What did he say?
I'm saying if there's a chocolate chip cookie, but there's a bowl of ice cream, I'm going to the bowl of ice cream. Like, you got to realize, like, you know, you may like the chocolate chip cookie because it's chocolate chip cookie, but dang, ice cream slaps in the right moment. Okay, anyways.
You don't want an oatmeal raisin cookie.
Oatmeal cookies are fire. Yeah. Oatmeal chocolate chip, even better. Anyways, let's move on.
Raisins suck.
You're not wrong. Okay. Okay. So my number 40 is King Kong Ain't Got Shit on Me, Alonzo Harris from Training Day. I didn't specify this because I rewatched this movie today, and the amount of phone calls that happen inside Dog Day Afternoon, I'm interested to see which Boatman, which one he thinks that I'm talking about when I say phone call from this. Do you know which one?
See, I was not certain. I thought you were talking about the one between him and the inspector, Charles Durning. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes, that's the one I'm talking about.
Okay, good. Then we are on the same.
Okay, but I just realized how many phone calls there actually take place inside Dog Day. It's a very bad reference. And then my number 30. Oh, did I flip it? I did. Sorry, Koho. I don't know why I did that, but my 39 is the end of Shutter Island, and my 38 is the phone call from Dog Day.
Yeah. Because that's what you sent to me was the other order. But
yeah. Okay. So 40 King Kong. Said this before. Denzel Washington deserved his Oscar for this. It wasn't a makeup Oscar. He deserved the Oscar. I think he's absolutely incredible in this film. I honestly wish he played more of a bad guy more often. Because I think he's absolutely incredible as the bad guy. Basically, if you haven't seen Training Day or you haven't seen it in a while, the jig is up. He is out. Everybody has turned on him. He has nobody. But Alonzo Harris still does not see that, as it's said. Ethan Hawke's walking away at the beginning of the scene. He's saying, "Get back here." They're holding a gun to his head. And he basically says, "I am the police. Like, I'm opening cases on every single one of you guys right here and now. 23-hour lockdown, no outside time." And then basically is like, "You can shoot me, You can shoot me as much as you want, but you can't kill me. King Kong ain't got shit on me. It's a famous line. He's bleeding, but he's like telling everybody that even when people are walking away and he's finally lost all his power, he still believes he is the strongest man alive. He gets in his car and he starts driving, and then he ends up getting blocked in, and fire rains down. He dies, and nobody dies better than Denzel in this movie. The man takes about 4,000 bullets basically, just like against the car, and he ends up dying. I think it's just incredible of a scene. My 39, which is now the end of Shutter Island. Into Shutter Island, again, when people think of Scorsese's movies and they think of Shutter Island, it's probably in that mid-range for a lot of people or lower. I think this movie deserves a lot more credit than it deserves, and basically it's how much you pick up the more you watch this movie about how many people are in on it, how many people are not. Basically, I don't want to give everything away, but the ending of Shutter Island is when he is sitting on the steps and talking to Ruffalo, and he's still in the character of, I can't think of the character's name off the top of my head, but he's sitting there talking about him being the police officer and be like, man, we almost had him, we're doing this, blah, blah. Mark Ruffalo looks over at Ben Kingsley's character and just shakes his head no. And he then sends the guards over because he's about to get, I think it's lobotomized. I think he's about to go, get completely, basically wiped almost. And he ends up standing up and looking at Ruffalo and basically says, it's better to live. I'm going to mess with the quote. I'm terrible at this. I'm Andrew Barr myself, but it's better to live like a good than live in a monster, whatever. It's basically, I'd rather.
Is it better to die as a monster or live as, or is it better to live as a monster?
Live as a good man than die as a monster. Again, I don't.
No,
what is the
90% of the time I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Is it better to live as a monster or die as a good man?
Yeah,
that's the quote. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Again, I wasn't going to quote, but and as soon as he says that, he stands up and he starts walking away, and Ruffalo's face completely changes and realizes that he may be making a grave mistake because he is as coherent as he can be. He just can't live with himself for what he did in his past. Basically, is how it ends. And he just walks off, and he gives him a smile when he walks, and it's just and him and Kingsley have this sort of interaction, we've just sentenced him to, but he was unconscious to make the decision. I think it's absolutely incredible. And 38, again, kind of mad that Kirk isn't here with the phone call from Dog Day. I just love this scene. I love Dog Day just without Kirk or not. I just think this is one of Pacino's absolute best performances. I was not as high on it. I think this is one of the most revolutionary films of that time frame of what they I remember thinking that and watching it today. I was still wow, the stuff they go for in the 70s at this time, I think it's just crazy. But it's fantastic, and I still think it holds up. But him in the Mason call with basically going through the negotiations with the interrogation, they're back and forth. It just shows how strong of an actor Pacino really is, and I can't think of the actor right now that plays
Charles Durden.
Charles Durden. Their back and forth is just fantastic. As much as Pacino gets praised for this performance, I think Charles Durden should get just equal of how good he is in this movie alongside with Pacino. So yeah, I won't go into much, but yeah, the phone call.
Yeah. So your 40 King Kong Training Day. I think that this scene has been memed and mocked, and honestly, all of its power should logically have been taken away because, it's been memed to death. It really hasn't. It's still a great scene, even with all the memes and jokes and parodies of it. It's still a great scene. It's still a fantastic acting moment from Denzel. I know some people say he's going too over the top with it. I completely disagree. I think he is giving a lot of intensity and anger and energy, but that's exactly what he should be giving here. Great pick. Yeah, no, this is solid pick. Ending of Shutter Island. I'm with you, Cody. I think that people are really hard on this. Not really hard on this movie, but people consider this low to mid-tier Scorsese, and I think this is really on the higher half of the spectrum at the very least. This is a great movie, and I think the ending is one of the best parts about it. And that moment where you're like, how much does Daniels actually know? How much is he like, does he really know all this? And he's just kind of decided that he's gonna live in denial and die being a good man. And I think that's a great little moment. I don't know how much I go back to this as a scene as much as this is a moment, but it's still a good pick, so I'm not going to begrudge you that. Phone call from Dog Day. This is I was a little puzzled by this, purely because I don't know if this is one of the Dog Day scenes I think of, but it is a good scene. It is a good scene. Because I think you do have Durning, who is one of the most underrated character actors, in my opinion. Durning always kills it and doesn't get enough credit for killing it. He's really good in this movie, and him working off Pacino on the phone, I think, is really good. I think there are better scenes in Dog Day, and I don't know, maybe you do have them higher, but I think there are better Dog Day scenes, but you're certainly not going to lose anything for having this one, because it's a good point. Good scene. So Jake, over to you for your 40 through 38.
All right, so my number 40 is The Worst Toilet in Scotland from Trainspotting. Number 39, The Bride versus Oren Ishii from Kill Bill Volume 1. And my number 38 is Victor's Trip to Europe from Rules of Attraction. All right, so my number 40 is just after the montage, the opening title sequence. At this point, Renton has decided to get off heroin, and he decides he's going to take suppositories. So he goes and meets up with Mickey Forster and shoves it up his ass, as you do with suppositories. But however, since he's no longer taking heroin, he is no longer constipated, and he needs to take a shit. And he unfortunately finds himself at the worst toilet in Scotland to do so. Which then leads to him accidentally shitting out the suppositories and him having to try and grab it, which then leads to a fantasy sequence in which he is inside the toilet, swimming around, trying to get his suppositories. I love this scene because it essentially just acts as a metaphor for heroin and drugs. It's dirty, it's horrible, but on the other side, it's beautiful, it's euphoric for the people who takes the drugs. And that's why it's so, and also just really plays into Danny Boyle's like stylistic choices and how some things don't have to be based in reality. He can be quite surreal with his imagery, and the sort of the set piece behind it is just really funny to watch. And yes, it's slightly gagging to watch him go through the toilet, but it all works for the movie.
Shit.
This is the only. There's two scenes on my Thai 100 involve this, and this is the last one. Jesus,
that's
Christ.
too many, Jake.
No, well, two, but it's also just great because it's just you get to see Renton. You get to see just Ewan McGregor just really play up the physical comedy of the scene, and it's really great. So yeah. My number 39, The Bride versus Oren Ishii. This is right after the Crazy 88 battle, and that is completely chaotic. The way the camera is designed, and it goes through the entire. She just destroys almost everyone there. When we go to the next scene after this, it's her, and it's just very static. It's her and Oren Ishii. They have this history. This is her first person on her list. We have a cover of "Don't Let There Be Misunderstood," which is a banger song and a banger cover, and the fighting isn't as crazy as it was with the Crazy 88s. It's just a very personal battle between these two. Oren gets a slice on Bride. They have this whole little back and forth of what happened between the two, and Oren's just like, for everything that happened, I'm sorry. And even though she feels a little bit remorse, the Bride knows that this is what she has to do. Have this fight, and then it ends with her cutting off Oren's head, which is great. And then she's like, so that really was a Hattori Hanzo sword. And with that, the Bride has completed her first kill on her list. And then my number 38, Victor's Trip to Europe from the Rules of Attraction. This is a thing that just comes out of nowhere. One of the guys, Victor, is on a trip to Europe, and we basically just have this whole montage of just this entire 3-week trip around Europe, and the way that it is edited and shot, and the monologue, just the voiceover from Victor is just so quick of like, I did this and just all the way through. Just the chaotic energy of it is just so frenetic and just unlike any other montage you've seen. Like it's done so well to the point where it's just like so much happened. And the way that they really shot this, that Roger Avery and the guy who played Victor just went around Europe for 3 weeks and he would just film everything. And there's a lot of it that was not shown because they made a short film out of it called Glitterati, and legally you cannot watch it because it was involved with an actual bombing that happened when they were in Europe. You see a little bit of it in the montage, but the editing and the energy and everything that you show is just so like real and just feels like something that like an early 20-year-old would totally do. And it's just like really, really fun to watch. Absolutely chaotic, but in a really fun way.
Hey, so yeah, no, this worst toilet in Scotland. You're not going to lose points for it because I do think your point about the metaphor is fair. But still, it's a scene where Ewan McGregor crawls around and shit, and I don't think that really deserves to be on the top 100 personally. So I'm not really going to give you. You're not going to get points for it. You're not going to lose points for it. The Bride versus Oren. This is a really good scene. This to me is like legitimately one of the best like sword fights in cinema. I'm not really a big sword fight in movies guy. I just usually find myself losing interest after a while. I think this is a way to do a sword duel and make it interesting and really visually spectacular. Great pick. Fantastic choice from this. And then the Victor's trip to Europe for Worlds of Attraction. Maybe it's because I haven't seen the full movie in context, and I get your points about the way this scene is shot and edited, and it's a neat. It looks like a neat film school short. It doesn't really seem like a great scene to me. It's like a neat little film school short of like, oh, fast paced MTV cut style. I just don't find it all that intriguing. The actual things that are happening in the scene. So yeah, Scott, over to you.
All right. At number 40, I have the kitchen scene from Jurassic Park.
Okay.
39, I have the scene of Lou singing at the party from Sound of Metal.
Okay.
And 38, I have one of the greatest speeches in the film. It's Carl Malden's speech at the docks and on the waterfront.
Okay.
Nobody had it. All right. 40, the kitchen scene from Jurassic Park. Yeah, this is my favorite scene from Jurassic Park. You're spoiled for choice, really, but I like this one because it is like somewhat grounded in reality. Like the dinosaurs are in this real setting that we have all seen before of a kitchen. This is really like the first time we see them kind of like indoors again in this realistic setting. And obviously, the kids are hiding and it's very tense. And obviously the CGI and everything and the dinosaurs is top notch, never been better. And just seeing them in this environment is really cool. And you really do feel in the best moments of this movie, especially in the scene, that the characters are in real actual danger from these dinosaurs. And I think that's never more true than in this scene and their escape and the tension. Again, he uses silence really well in a movie that you think of as being, a loud, special effects driven, John Williams driven movie. There's some good silent moments here. So it's, banger scene from a banger film. 39, Lou's scene from Sound of Metal. Yeah, so this movie to me, even though it ends on a little bit of a hopeful note, it is one of the saddest movies that I've seen in a long time. Just the idea of somebody all of a sudden in the blink of an eye losing everything that like was important to them and like not being able to explain why, there being no way to fix it, no way to get it back, is just like a heartbreaking idea. And this is towards the end of the movie when Ruben has paid to have the implants and believes that this is sort of his shot. He's spent all of his money, spent all of his money to get these implants, and thinking that this is his one shot to get everything back. And he goes to visit Lou, his ex-girlfriend, Olivia Cook's character, and thinks, maybe he can get her back. Maybe they can get back what they once had in this band together. And it ends up with her singing at the piano with her father. And it's brilliant the way the scene is edited and the sound, obviously, and all of that won Academy Awards, and deservedly so. Because we start off and we just hear her singing, and we hear that she's singing, and it's very lovely. It's very beautiful to listen to, Again, they made their name together with her singing. And then as it goes on, there's just that like sort of moment where the editing changes and we hear what Ruben is hearing, and it's nonsense. Basically, it's garbled, it's distorted, it sounds terrible. And just the look on his face, and in that moment is such a devastating moment of that is when he finally has to accept he's never going to get it back again. He's never going to hear the music the same again. He's never going to have Lou back again. She's moved on with her life. It's again, it's that moment where he finally has to accept what his fate is, despite trying to sort of deny it for much of the movie. So I think it's an underrated scene, underrated film. 2020, people tend to think on it and be like, well, there are no movies that came out this year. This was COVID. This movie came out in 2020. It was one of the best movies from 2020, and more people should check it out. 38, Carl Malden's speech. Yeah, I mean, this is probably my favorite performance in a movie that has like 3 or 4 all-time performances in it. This is, just such a powerful speech. In the context of the movie, yes, of course, the mob have been, injuring and killing people who are speaking out against them. And, Carl Malden decides he's not going to be afraid of them. He's going to, as the priest, he's going to just, right here in front of everyone, in front of the, sort of regular folks, he's going to, on the one hand, warn them about the danger, but also on the other hand, sort of chastise them for not doing anything about it, right? For standing by when they know what's going on and being afraid to stand up to the mob. And, he's quoting the Bible, and he's saying, what happened to these guys? It was a crucifixion, and saying, that quoting the Bible and saying, whatever you do to the least of me, you do to me. And, then comparing that to the people who are there watching, again, all the normal folks who have the power to stand up to them. And, it's a good scene in the context of the movie, but also just the broader context of it. It doesn't just apply to like the mob in the context of this movie. You can think about it in a lot of real world scenarios. The idea that the people who are not standing up to the bad guys are complicit, as much as those who are out here, performing the terrible acts. And so it has resonance, even deep into today. And Carl Malden's just, commanding big voice presence in this scene is perfect. I don't think anyone else could have performed this speech the way that he does. So it's a great scene.
Yeah. So your 40 was what? Sorry, remind me what the Koho. Can you put the 40
Jurassic Park?
Jurassic Park. Thank you. Your 40 was the kitchen scene from Jurassic Park. This is my favorite scene from Jurassic Park. This is a great pick. I think the way I think things are almost more tense when they're smaller. And I think just removing everything else, just kids in the kitchen, on the other side of the door, you have raptors. Boom, there's your scene. I think it's so brilliant. Spielberg doesn't get enough credit because he is such an epic director, but he doesn't get enough credit for being able to do these like small little intimate moments in a way that still feel very large. And I think that's exactly what he does here. Fantastic pick. Just the little door jiggle is just such a great detail. Your 39 was Lou Sings at the Party from Sound of Metal. This is a scene when you picked it. I was like, and then I watched the scene again, and I totally get it. This is a really good moment. I think that when you actually hear like how he's hearing it and the kind of disconnect between what it actually sounds like is a really good scene. And just I think Riz Ahmed does a lot of heavy lifting with his acting here. I think this is a really great performance from him. But yeah, like the sound design in this movie is so good. Like it's a movie that just sounds great and is so well designed sound wise. And then your 38, yeah. I'm sure Kirk likes this scene, but you kind of lucked out that you got me this week. This is an all timer for me. I love this scene. I love his line of, and I say anyone who sees something and doesn't say anything about it is as guilty as the Roman soldier who pierced Christ's flesh. Like, oh my gosh. And you can just see the way it's like hitting Terry and the way it's just like eating him up inside. But then like all the other reactions. I love like just the way this scene is like shot and like set. Where like he's down there and then you have like everyone kind of all along the sides going up and up until at the very top you have Lee J. Cobb and Rod Steiger symbolizing that they are at the very top of this pyramid. So I think that's like a really great like visual metaphor going on there. And yeah, I love this speech. Malden is one of my favorite performances of all time. So yeah, you picked a good week to have me, Scott. So now the gloves come off. Everybody can talk about everybody. So Jack, go ahead. 37 through 34.
All right. My 37 is the filibuster from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Okay.
Yeah. This scene is brilliant. For those that have never seen this film, for those that for those that have never seen this film, at this point, James Stewart's Jefferson Smith has been torn apart, discredited, and basically had his entire character shattered in front of all these politicians. And because he knows of the corruption that's going on, and he takes a stand in front of the I'm gonna say Senate, even though I'm not entirely sure that's correct. I'm not American, so what do I know? But he takes his stand in front of all these politicians and will not give up the floor until he's been heard. And the performance from Claude Rains in this scene is fantastic, but it's Jimmy Stewart when he is so tired. He stands for hours, almost a full day, and his voice is completely gone. He cannot speak. He can barely stand. And when all the letters get brought in and he just collapses, you feel just absolutely drained by this scene, this performance, this entire film. I love this scene. I love this performance. It's absolutely brilliant, and I'm honestly very surprised no one else had it earlier on their list, but that's okay.
This is a brilliantly done scene. I am a little surprised that no one else has this, because not only is this one of Jimmy Stewart's finest moments of acting, but the way this scene is set up of basically this person he's right. He is in the absolute right. And he is just clamoring for anything in the face of basically this overwhelming defeat. And he's on his last legs. And I think that's so beautiful. I love his speech. Stewart's acting kills it. And then at the end, you have Claude Rains coming in, being like, no, he's right. And brilliant moment, brilliant scene. Why did all of you not have this?
I've not seen the movie.
Well, that's still a you problem.
It is.
I mean, I don't blame Jake for not seeing it. He's not American. It probably doesn't have the same weight. When I thought about it, do I think it's like one of the greatest performances? Yes. Do I love the filibuster scene as much as everybody else? No. I think it's great, but I overall just like the movie. some of these scenes I picked, I go back and just watch the scenes almost, or where they're a thing. This one, I just don't do that to it. And then it's Koho's second favorite actor, so I was not going to put him on my list. It was not going to happen.
That's it's honestly weird that you let Koho live that rent free in your head. To be honest, like you're basically
he doesn't live rent free.
Well,
he would get more pleasure out of it if I put it.
He likes Jimmy Stewart. Fair. Anyway, we're gonna Scott. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, objectively a great scene. Objectively a iconic scene. I'm not trying to hound Jack too much like Cody is about picking like the IMDb scenes, but this is definitely one of them. And I just don't know that for me, at least, there's anything that interesting to say about it. So while I enjoy it, it wasn't going to make my favorites list.
I think that's just what some of us have done is just pick scenes that we don't really hear much about. The filibuster we've heard about, and we just talked about it at length in top 100 performances also. So I didn't want to bring it right back for the next one as well. So
Fair.
Anyway, Jack, we go to your 36.
All right. My 36, this one's not an IMDb pick. I'll just say that right now because it's Logan's Death from Logan. Yeah. Hugh Jackman strikes again on my list. No, this scene is...
Which one? There's two in the movie. I just need to know which one.
Fine. The one in the forest after from the Berserker Rage to when he actually dies, if that helps.
Not the younger version. Yeah.
This this scene's fantastic. I've said it a number of times on this show before, and just in general conversation. Hugh Jackman, Wolverine. The X-Men movies are like what made me fall in love with superhero movies long before the MCU ever did. And I grew up with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and to see this happen, something that I never had previously thought possible, where Wolverine dies, I was not ready for that scene. And seeing and it works so well in this film because of everything that happened before building up to this moment. He's lost everything. He's lost his friends. He's lost the family that he found with the X-Men. He's lost his father figure basically in Professor X, and he, as a last-ditch effort to save essentially to save his daughter, basically takes the serum, which triggers his Berserker Rage, which is something that I've wanted to see in film for so long, and we finally get it in this one. And when it wears off, you know that he's not coming back from this. And when he gets impaled on that tree, I start tearing up every single time. It's one of the greatest send-offs to a character ever. It was originally a little bit higher on my list, I will say, but just be thankful it's this low. It's a scene that never fails to affect me. It's fantastic.
Yeah, maybe I'm just heartless, or maybe fandom has just killed any passion I will ever have for this. But hey, it's like, this is fine. This is fine. It's not a bad scene. 36 of all time. You have this higher than the filibuster. You have this higher than Deer Hunter, Planes, Trains, Auto. But like, you have this higher than so many great scenes. I'm gonna judge you for that because like this is good, but this is a fandom, comic book guy who's only seen 20 movies favorite scene. Like, this is not an actual favorite scene, like, if we're being honest. Like, this is I don't know why Cody's complaining about the IMDb version of Jack, because that version of Jack is way better than the I have seen 12 movies and they are all comic book movies Jack, because the
IMDb version.
Anyway, I think that Logan's Death is fine. This scene doesn't tilt the needle. Now, Cody, go ahead.
I just messaged me. Anybody wants to be the replacement host for this? Anyways, on that note, no, the reason why I have a problem with the IMDb Jack is because that's the fake Jack, the Jack that doesn't show up, the Jack that doesn't know those scenes and can't talk about those scenes like. This is probably the most animated he has been for a scene because you know why? He actually likes the scene. This is a weird one for me. I've always used Logan as the exact analogy as if you like sports, which Boatman doesn't, but if you like sports, this is like this whole movie is watching a player that you've loved your entire life and they don't have it anymore. And it's them being beat down and you just rather a bullet go in their head. Like they drop out of the batter's box and say, I'm retiring. I'm not playing this game anymore because I can't compete. I think the Berserker Rage scene, which is very weird that you said I've always been looking for that in film, he does that in every X-Men movie, just not to the degree that he does in this one. But he yells, he rages, he pulls his claws out, and he kills about 6 or 7 or 8 people. Like, he does it every X-Men movie. This one, it just felt they forced this, like, daughter relationship thing that I've never hooked to, never in the film. I think it elevates it higher up, but overall his death is never as like final as it should be or how I should feel it to be, and it just never is. So that's my thing. So it was never made my list.
Yeah, I've honestly never really cared too much for Logan. And just the fact that like I think the death is handled pretty well. Like his whole speech to whatever her name is, X-23, I can't remember her name. But I think that's like done really well. But I just always found it anticlimactic that he's killed by being stabbed by a tree. But yeah, that's just me.
And Scott, you haven't seen Logan, you said?
Yeah, I have not, but I do know that Logan dies, so I was not spoiled.
Well, Deadpool 2 spoiled that ending. That's the ending for you. So.
Which, unfortunately, I have seen. Well, actually, I kind of like it, but I have seen it.
Anyway, Jack, you're 35 then.
All right. My 35. It's Valerie's story from V for Vendetta. This is a scene that or this is a film that I hadn't seen until I started watching movies for Fandom. And this film I really love. But it's this moment. It's not any grand fight scene like that you get with V like you get earlier in the film. It's very simple. Evie has been captured. She's being held in prison, and she gets these notes with a story written on it from someone in a neighboring cell. And it's a very grounded moment where you find out the identity of this woman named Valerie, who had a girlfriend or a wife prior to the government, the totalitarian government coming into power, and how because of everything that happened, her wife or girlfriend was killed. They were separated. And she's just living in absolute hell. And this moment never fails to make me tear up. It just the sheer just hopelessness of this scene, and Natalie Portman kills it in the scene as Evie. She doesn't have to do much, but she brings a lot to the scene, and it's truly a very tragic moment, and I definitely the scene that stands out to me every time I think of this movie.
I think this scene does its job, which is to get you attached to this character and then have that character be torn away from you. I think it's very serviceable. Again, I think you're having these way too high. These are like 190, that range scenes, not top 40 of all of cinema. But It's not a bad scene. It's a good scene actually. So it's not necessarily going to hurt you, but it's not going to help you. Everybody else on Valerie's story from V for Vendetta.
I've seen this movie once. I couldn't tell you what this scene really is off the top of my head.
I've only seen this movie once. I couldn't tell you what the scene is from the top of my head.
Scott?
Same.
Fair enough. Hey, we're keeping this show moving. I'm happy about that. Anyway, now we'll go to Jack's 34.
All right, my 34. Yeah, it's the They Knew scene from Spotlight.
Yikes.
Figured.
And y'all knew that would be the case.
I had a feeling.
Oh, yeah.
We all knew! And he kept it from
They
us.
did nothing. All right.
Now we go over to Cody.
Oh, crap. Yeah, it's my turn. My 37, we've talked about a scene from this movie. It's even got a similar title, but I think this is the better version of it. It's the Russian roulette scene from The Deer Hunter, but it's De Niro and the whole, like, when they're in throwing the money down, that scene instead of the very end. That is the most, like, iconic one. This scene is incredible overall. Like, I rewatched it, and I understand why everybody picks the second one because of the graphic, like how graphic it is with walking and bleeding and blah blah. But this scene, when they're all just they don't speak the language, they're throwing out money, the bullet in the pistol, the spin, and then the spin of it, who gets it. The acting performance from Walken and De Niro in the scene is probably one of the greatest acting that has ever been on screen. You feel everything that they are feeling in this movie. You feel the pain, the panic, the nervous energy. De Niro holds the gun up to his head and he clenches so hard that he shakes. When it clicks and it solves it, like when he puts the gun down, he is still like violently shaking after, like, from what's going on. And he is doing, like, the thing is, he is getting the shit beat out of him, and he's putting a gun to his head, and they've got all these machine guns pointed at him. And he still is walking and being that friend that be like, you put that empty chamber through. Just put the empty chamber through. Like, just the knowing, like, being the friend to be like, well, this is the worst possible situation, but you do this, and you can do this. He puts it in, and, like, he draws attention off of him, and he grabs the one, and he says, I'm going to fucking kill, like, you're going to die. Like, you're going to die for this. And then Walken triggers, and it like, misses. And then it does it again. It goes through the same sequence, and De Niro, like, turns the gun, and it's the live round, and shoots him, and grabs the gun, and then they end up killing everybody. But it's like, my heart was racing again just watching the scene, because, like, again, I think that last scene has a lot of weight, but the acting performance from these two in this movie, this scene is, like, I don't know. I still just don't understand, like, how you, like, when an actor gets a role and says, hey, this is the part you're playing, how you can be ready and show, like, this is a real life situation of playing Russian roulette where you're really in no danger. No, things could mishap, but they're under a film study, like, film set. This is say, and you have to portray that you're, under this condition. I just don't know how you
wasn't there that day. So yeah, they were.
Damn it! I knew somebody was going to make the cheap plug. I just feel like it's just, I don't know how you coach yourself into that performance. I just don't. I think it's insane.
Yeah, no, this is an all-time. This is an all-timer scene. Yeah, the acting moments, I think the way the tension is built between this, like, there's just a level of it. And the guys playing the Viet Cong are also, I don't want to neglect their performances, because if they aren't bringing the intensity at a level of 11, then De Niro and Walken don't have anything to work off of. And I think they're also doing really good too. But yeah, this is De Niro and Walken, and honestly, this scene is a little bit more De Niro than Walken, if we're being honest. Like, well, not that Walken isn't incredible, and I think I like the performance in the movie more than Walken, but I think De Niro is just doing so much here.
the sound effects of the slaps and everything that go, it just raises it to another level.
Yeah, no, fantastic pick. Did anyone else have this?
I had the other one.
You
This
had the worst one, so you probably
debatable.
Well,
Anyway.
yeah, it's debatable, and I'm the one.
How much does it mean to say that's the worst one when there's just two of them? I mean,
That's okay.
Two
Well,
really effective.
anyway, I had the other one. It was neck and neck with this one, and I just barely went with the other one. But this is a fantastic pick, Cody. Genuinely almost made my list.
Where did the other one land on your list?
Where did it land? Oh, at 60.
So then it wasn't neck and neck, because there were 40.
Neck and neck with the other one.
No, it wasn't.
That's not what you said.
There's 40 other scenes. There's 40 other scenes. It wasn't neck and neck then.
I
And
haven't
there's
seen
40
it.
other scenes. If it was at your 100, then it would be
Okay.
I haven't seen it, but I have seen the scene.
Well,
And I'm picking
you
only
guys need
one
to be
for
better
each
at
film,
watching
then
All right, my next one, probably a more iconic scene, if we're being honest. We're talking about Magic Grits. We're talking My Cousin Vinny.
I already had this.
Yeah. Again, there are a few scenes there's a lot of scenes that I could pull from this movie. This movie is probably one of my favorite comedies of all time. And the way they're able to do this, I think Scott has said, is this the one? The how you cross-examine a witness is like the best way to do it. They do it the correct way. When he goes through all the witnesses and he gets to this one, he cross-examines him, and he's like running through all the stuff about. So you're saying, is it possible that two identical cars pulled up at different times, got in, robbed, shot the person, got out? And he's like, it's impossible. There's not enough time. How much time would you say passed? 5 minutes. And he's like, well, you're cooking breakfast. And he basically just falls him into a trap about asking him what he made for breakfast. And the classic one is he's like, I'm making grits. And he just learned previously in the film that grits take 20 minutes to cook, done right. And that's when he just unloads on him. He goes, so you have a magic stove, and basically berates him down to a point where he's just like, has to admit, he goes, maybe there was more time. Like maybe there was more time.
Cook, I guess.
Oh no, that's not what you said. Are you telling me that the water soaks in a grit faster on your stove faster than everybody else's? It's just one of those ultimate moments in a court film that got your moment on it. And I mean, it's done with Joe Pesci doing his bit and everything, but it is a brilliant scene. And Scott, you can take it away.
Yeah, I mean, it's great because the tactic is like to ask somebody these innocuous questions. They don't even see where you're going with it. They're just answering, oh yeah, no, of course I would never make instant grits. And then, now you've trapped them with their own words when you actually connect it to the case. But yeah, it's a hilarious scene. I mean, there's not too much to add except that it's very funny. And of course it ends with something that I think we've all wanted to say at times to someone who is exhausting us, which is, I got no more use for this guy. So it's perfect.
Yeah, no, this is a great moment. I personally do prefer Mona Lisa's cross-examination. I do think, just personally, that's the better. Did you already? Okay, yeah. So anyway, I personally,
the future is out there. We don't know.
That's valid. Anyway, I'm just saying, I personally prefer that, but I'm not going to take that against you, even if you didn't have it at all, because I think this is a great pick. This is a fantastic scene. I think that, yeah, you pretty much covered it. I will say the one little element of, I love the judge basically just being like, you made your point. I think you made your point. Like, I do like that little detail too. Jack, now that you had it.
I've only seen My Cousin Vinny once, and that was last year. I do want to rewatch it. I do remember the scene. I like it. There's a lot of scenes that are great from this movie. I just don't have that much of a love to put on my list.
Valid, Jack?
Yeah, no, this is a great scene. I did consider a couple scenes from this film, but none of them made my list. But I'm glad it made Scott's and Cody's.
Cody, you're 35.
This again, it did. I did not mean to do this. This happened the same time on Top 100, where I just paired like a group of 10, and it happened to have a lot of this one actor in it, and it's not intentional. But this is Denzel Washington. This is from Fences, and it's the "Why Don't You Like Me" scene. He's outside and he's helping. Him and his son are working on stuff, and he his son makes like an off comment, and it's like, "Why don't you buy a TV, Dad?" He's like, "Why the hell would I need a TV, son?" And like starts talking to him, and he's like, "Well, you can watch stuff on it." He's like, "Well, every time I work for my money, everybody comes through and just takes my money, so there is no room. But if I have $200, I'll tell you right now, I'll spend it on something better than a TV." Basically dismisses his son the entire time. And then his son's leaving and says, "Can I ask you a question, Dad?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Why don't you like me?" "Like you?" And then that ensues. Is like, "Nothing tells me that I have to like you, son. I have to do right by you. I have to provide a roof over your head, but I don't have to like you. Do you think he pays me my paycheck because he likes me? No, because I do my work for him." But he just basically, it's Denzel, and this one always gets like a critique because it's a play, and he's like it feels very play-like, the Fences. But his performance as him is absolutely incredible. What sells this scene, because you see if you've ever had a hard dad, or you've ever seen another friend that had a hard, this is one of those moments that they're just they're not seeing, he just wants love and understanding from his father, and his dad's like, "I didn't get into this agreement to share that to you. I'm gonna take care of you. You're not gonna have to worry for nothing. You got food in this kitchen. You got clothes on your back. That's all because of me. Why don't you just say thank you?" It's basically that, and I think it's just a super solid scene. And I rewatched Fences, and I think this movie should get more credit. I think this movie is absolutely great. But yeah, Fences.
No, yeah, I love scenes where characters basically kind of accidentally reveal their whole philosophy of why they've been acting the way they've been acting the whole movie. And you basically get a realization that, yeah, this guy is mean to his son, but in his mind, he's doing what he should be doing. And I think that is so fascinating. It is a really great moment, and it's because Denzel is one of the greatest actors of all time. And I think we because a lot of his great performances aren't exactly he's not a super there are exceptions, but he's not an actor say a Daniel Day-Lewis, who just completely plays 7 or 8 different characters in every movie he's in. He has a lot of the same type of characters and a lot of the same type of modes, but that doesn't mean that he plays them the same. There are a lot of subtle differences. You look at the King Kong scene from Training Day, and you look at this. There's a lot of subtle differences in the yelling and the different moments. And yeah, this is a great scene, great pick. Everybody else thoughts on this scene?
I haven't seen this movie yet.
It's a good scene. I haven't seen it in almost 5 years, but I do remember liking it. I should probably just get back to rewatch it because it's been too long.
Scott?
Yeah, I've seen it and read the play. I was having trouble remembering the scene at first, but then when Cody was describing it, it did come back to me a little bit. I do want to rewatch. You did make me want to rewatch the scene, but I mean the acting. I do remember being phenomenal in this movie, of course.
Well, anyway, so now Cody, you're 34.
There was no doubt that the scene was going to be on my list. It just matters where. There is a football movie out there that is my all-time favorite football movie of all time. And it's Remember the Titans. I don't even need to look much of this up because I pretty much can do it from memory. But it is the scene where the refs are completely fucking the Titans, and he Will Patton. No, that's not right. Will Patton. Will Patton goes across the field and goes, And he basically is like, I know what you're doing. And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? He's like, listen, I'll go to the papers. I don't care if I go down with you, but you're going to call this game fair. And he's like, it's your own funeral. And then, if you've ever played sports, I've played this sport of football, and everybody gets together, and your coach calls everybody into the huddle and be like, listen. And it's the defensive speech, where I call it, but it's like basically, don't give them another yard, is the exact phrase. And where he's like, he even calls like PD over, and he's like, hey, blah, blah. He's like, they're calling me a holding penalty. He's like, I don't need that excuse. And PD walks off, so Ryan Gosling's character gets pulled right back into it. And he's like, listen, defense, I don't want them to gain another yard. We blitz all night. If they cross the line of scrimmage, I'm going to take every last one of you out. And they'll remember forever the night they played the Titans. And then the montage plays where the most ridiculous football tackles of all time happen, where they're just clotheslining people and they're flipping all over the place. And basically they knock over the quarterback, and he looks over him and goes, you better get used to being down there. You're going to be down there all night. And then they point to the other coach. And then it ends basically when the ball gets turned over to the offense, and he looks at Herman and goes, hey, Herman, run up the score. Leave no doubt. It's just one of like the most like, let's go, because it was completely out of their control. They had no shot of doing anything, but the flags kept coming, and that defensive speech just, they do cross the line of scrimmage, just so he does not take them all out. But other than that, it's a fantastic scene. It could have been higher, but I held myself in at 34, and it probably, how I'm talking about it, should be higher.
Yeah, I think I've said before, this is my favorite football movie. This is the one time I care about football, mainly because the football is not the focal point of this movie, if we're being honest. But this is a really well done movie, and I do like this scene. To me, there are at least 2, maybe 3 other scenes of this movie that I personally prefer, but this is a solid scene. I do like this. I just think if you're going to go with the Remember the Titan scene, and I know you've had quite a few Denzel on your list, Cody, but if you're not going to go for like Gettysburg or one of the big like Herman, speeches, to me, that's where you kind of need to go for. But still a good scene.
The two that crossed my mind is especially when he shows up to camp, he shows up to the school and runs through everybody. But again,
Jerry, tells the joke, and Dean sings the song.
Yeah,
So
I could do so many, but
Daddy.
Yeah.
Oh, my name's Louis Lastic. Somebody said football, so I come running. But yeah, no, this movie rules. Still, good pick. Everybody else on this scene.
Best football movie easily. This scene hits home for anyone who's ever had their team play against Alabama before. It's what the refs do every single time, so I'm used to it. But no, it's a great scene. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I didn't have any scenes from this movie. Maybe there's not one that stands out for me. Yeah, I'd have to think about it a little bit more. But this is as good a pick as any of them.
Well,
yeah, Boatman brought up the Gettysburg scene, and that's the one I'd go for, but this is still a great moment. Good pick, Cody.
I've only seen the movie once, and that was a while ago, and I barely remember the scene.
Well,
did you have Gettysburg, Jake? Or Jack? Did you have Gettysburg?
No, I'm saying
you can't say shit
from the movie. That would be the one.
Shut your mouth.
Okay.
Anyway, Jake, you're 37.
My 37. Jack, I disagree. You're talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark having the greatest opening to any movie ever. I disagree. I think this is the greatest opening of all time. Johnny Knoxville being chased by bulls, the opening of Jackass, number 2. While Ennio Morricone's Ecstasy of Gold plays. I said that as a joke. It's a joke. I'm not being entirely serious, but
I kind of agree.
It's for the funnies. How epic of a movie is it to have your opening be Johnny Knoxville and friends being chased by bulls in slow motion in this town while Ennio Morricone's Ecstasy of Gold from The Good, the Bad, the Ugly plays? You see them smash into the the fucking cars and then bins. Wee Man hides in the bins. They jump into a house and then out of the window, and that's when Johnny Knoxville has his introduction to Jackass. Hi, I'm Johnny Knoxville. Welcome to Jackass. And as he is knocked by a bull out into the window on outside, it's just incredible comedy. It introduced every main character and main actors of the movie. It's just fucking funny though, just to see them all being chased and you get their reactions in slow motion to it. It's just brilliant stuff. I think this is when I remember watching this for the first time on like TV with my brother, we were just laughing our ass off, just like, this is how you should open a movie. It's just brilliant stuff.
Look, Jackass was not built for me. It just wasn't.
There's no shit in the scene, I must say.
That being said, I do appreciate the artistry and comedy portrayed in this scene. I know that's a weird thing to say about Jackass, but I appreciate like the music cue, the way it's shot, like for a comedy movie, like a dumb comedy movie based on an MTV TV show or Spike. What was it? MTV? I don't know.
It was a TV, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, based on a dumb MTV TV show, the fact that they did put a little bit of effort into the actual filmmaking parts of it, I appreciate that. I don't really care about Johnny Knoxville or his band of idiots, so this scene doesn't really do much for me, but I didn't hate it either. So, yeah. Everyone else on Johnny Knoxville.
No.
Hit with a bull.
I've never seen this movie. No. I've never seen this scene. I have seen the golf scene. I don't know if that's from Jackass 2, though.
That's from the first one.
Okay.
This may be one of the greatest scenes that Jake could have ever put on his list. I kind of am mad. There is that music. The sad thing is, I may lose points on both Boatman here. When that music cue hits, I think of this movie way before I think of any other movie. And the standing before it is like, I'm Johnny Knoxville, welcome to Jackass. And that bull hits him and he's like crumpled over. It's brilliant. It's an absolute brilliant scene. Jackass 2 is by far my favorite one too. So, yeah, great choice.
Scott, you haven't seen it?
No.
No, okay. So anyway, JQ 36.
36. This is one of the greatest choreographed action scenes ever. Fight scenes. Jade versus Yushu Lien from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Jake, before you start talking about this, are you sure you have the character names right? Because I was a little confused.
Michelle Yeoh versus Xiao Zhang. That scene.
Okay, I think you've got the character names wrong.
Oh, is it wrong? Shit. Oh, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, but you're good. I might be wrong. Maybe you have them right.
I think I just got it from
inside. Me too. I think her name is Jen.
That's based on what we
that's the scene that I could find was Jen versus that character. So that's
I might have been an autocorrect.
I'm gonna be hanging from the bathroom.
Jen versus Yushu.
That was aggressive.
It's probably that one. I think it was an autocorrect, but my bad.
If my graphic is wrong, I'll kill you all.
Okay.
Anyway, but yeah, Xiao Zhang versus Michelle Yeoh, the one-on-one fight scene. At one of my favorite action scenes ever. At this point, Jen has the Green Destiny, which is the most indestructible, most powerful sword ever built. Can cut through almost pretty much everything. But she is not as skilled as a fighter as Yushu Lien. And you just basically see them fight. First, she picks up like a giant staff, but every weapon that Michelle Yeoh gets just is destroyed by Jade's Green Destiny, even though she is like easily a more skilled fighter. And it's just sort of her commitment and trying to outplay Jen throughout the entire scene. Could have been just a little bit louder. And it's just, really wonderful done. I just think the choreography is excellent. And just the fact that, like, this is Ang Lee's first attempt at an action scene. Thank you. Really just shows how much, like, dedicated and how skilled he was when it comes to filmmaking. I think it's really well done. And I really love the ending of how she's able to slice the sword and still is able to win. It just shows sort of why Michelle Yeoh is a better fighter than Jen. So, yeah, I'm going with this scene.
No, this is a solid scene. I've never seen the movie in full, so I probably lose any and all context. But it's a well done sword fight scene. I wouldn't say it's as good as the Bride versus Oren fight from Kill Bill, and to me, that's like the gold standard of sword scenes. And as I said before, sword fight scenes lose a little bit of their luster for me after a while. So this doesn't necessarily get you on the high end, but it's still a very well done scene. So I respect the pick more than I necessarily actually like it. Everyone else on the scene from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Haven't seen it.
Cody, have you
I've seen it once. Nothing of them really like came close to my list. So,
if I had seen the movie more than once, perhaps I would have had this on my list because, like, this is cinema. Like, honestly, just watching this, I loved the movie. I watched it actually just this year for the first time, and I really loved it. It's one of my favorite first time watches from this year. But yeah, this is like, even though it is two people ostensibly trying to like hack each other up, it's like beautiful to watch. Like, there's really no other word that I can think for it. The choreography, and I love when she like throws the I don't know if they're like
I can't remember. Yeah, like those types
shuriken or whatever they are, but like, and the way that Xiu Zhang dodges out of the way, and the acrobatics obviously are some of my favorite parts, and then she just like flies away at the end. It's so cool.
Okay, so that's everyone's that. JQ35.
This might be us. We'll see. My number 35 is getting rid of the housekeeper from Parasite.
So are we talking about when they fake her having TB?
Yeah.
Okay, not a yikes.
Okay, cool. So at this point, 3 of the 4 families have integrated into the Parks family. And now they're trying to get rid of the housekeeper who's been essentially with the house since before the Park family, the previous owners. And so they basically know that she has a peach allergy, and they exploit that and pretend it is tuberculosis. You have the dad, who's the driver, telling the wife that it could be TB. They fake the coughing, and then it all is set up basically just to get her into the house. And they have this whole like just planning of, let's get her into the house at this time where we can have her come in here. And then they they set up everything. Basically, they set up like she's bleeding, and they get the tomato sauce. Just everything about it is just really well done. And the way the editing is designed, you have them recite the dialogue like this. You got to say this at this point to her. They get her to pretend to go to the hospital so they can get a selfie, so they can get in the background. Like, I'm pretty sure I saw her at the hospital, and it looked like she was talking about tuberculosis. All the setup, basically, once she's coughing, he pours the blood into the bin and reveals it. That shot of the revealing of the blood and her fainting is just brilliant stuff. I absolutely think it's fantastic. There's many great scenes from Parasite, but I think this is the one that I think is the most well designed, perfectly executed. I think it's wonderful, and it's the one scene that just really stands out for me.
No, this is legitimately one of the most like spectacularly edited scenes ever. Like, just the way this scene is constructed is so brilliant. And I love that this scene in the movie just kind of randomly feels like a heist movie scene. Like, nothing else in that movie really feels like that, but this one sequence almost just feels like a heist movie, and it's really awesome. And the way each part of the plan comes together is really fascinating, and like the back and forth that you get of like the son, like them planning it and then going in, and it's just so well weaved and edited and put together. Fantastic pick. Why did nobody else have this?
I made a face as soon as he said it. I was like, ooh, that's a good one. No, again, I haven't seen this movie that often, so I've seen it maybe I think twice at this point. Is this when she like tumbled? They throw her down the stair. Is that's okay? So I'm just making sure I don't. Yeah. Again, that's why when I was thinking of this movie, there's a lot that I thought of, but I couldn't like pull like something off the bat. I think it's a brilliant movie, but I just couldn't pull something to put on my list.
So there was a scene from this. This scene was heavily in contention with another scene from this film, and neither of them ended up making the list somehow. But yeah, no, that's a great pick, Jake. I love Song Kang-ho in this scene. Just the expression he has on his face when he pulls out the napkin from the garbage and he's showing the blood on it. It's priceless. And him rehearsing at home with his son, he's like, "You're way up here. I need you like down here." And he does it. Does the line again. It's a great, very well executed scene. So yeah, great pick.
Yeah, it's such a great scene. I remember this movie didn't show in theaters near me, so I was watching it online via sources, and this I guess happens like about 30 minutes in or so, and I just remember after the scene was over, like I paused it and I just like had to text my friend and be like, "I'm watching Parasite. Like this movie is incredible." Like, and this was the scene that like kicked it into gear for me. Yeah, it's so good. I love the music too, like and how dramatic it crescendos when he pulls out the tissue. And yeah, I do have a different scene from the movie, but it's a similar sort of thing where it's like it's this montage like sequence where you see all these things happening. You're wondering like how is it all going to come together? How are they going to pull it off? And then they do, and it's like, oh, this is like satisfying to watch it all click into place, even though what they're doing is kind of like icky.
So yeah, it's a little morally not right.
Mm-hmm.
So number 34.
Yeah, I was muted.
Yeah, no, that's all good. So my number 34 is from. I had to pick a scene from Mad Max Fury Road. There's many scenes that I really like. Shut up, Cody. There's many scenes I really like, but I feel like this is the one that set my expectations for what I was going to expect for the action in the movie. It's I'll say the first big action scene, the war rig versus the spiky cars. Yeah, it's just boring. That's fine. But yeah, this is at this point, Furiosa is heading out, and Immortan Joe realizes something's wrong. She's not going towards Gastown, and just sends all of his army towards him. But you got Nux, who's in his like nitro fuel cars, going straight already there, and they're on some sort of territory with some other gang, and their defining trait is that their cars are all spiky. And I really love that sort of aesthetic choice. There's a moment that I really, really love when you see the two cars sort of smash into each other and on the air. And it's just like this mechanical beauty that's really well done. Just the whole scene, I think also the scores really well. You also set up the Valhalla and dying in battle with the guy sprays his mouth and then smashes into the car. I think that's done really well. The whole scene is just done extremely just effective, and I just think that everything about the scene is done extremely well on a technical standpoint. Yeah, I just think it's really well done, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, for me, I just don't know if any Mad Max Fury Road like scene stands out over the other, because the whole movie is kind of it's the same thing over and over again, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because I like what it's doing. But it kind of gets to a point where there's no one. The guys in the bad guys in trucks are almost about to get the good guys in the trucks, and then they don't. Like, there's no one moment that really hits for me. Again, I'm talking madly about this movie. I do like this movie. I'm not as down on it as some people, but it also doesn't hit the highs for me that it does for other people, because it gets a little repetitive after a while. So not bad, but not a particularly notable scene for me. Everybody else?
I've got a friend, and this is one of his all-time favorite films. And
get a new friend.
Nah, he's a great friend. But anyway, I had. It was 5 years between when this movie was released and when I finally saw it, and the entire time people had been telling me, "Oh, Jack, you're gonna love this movie. This is absolutely a movie you're gonna love." And I felt really, really let down by it. It's still a very good film. There's scenes that I really like, but I've only seen it the one time, and I was kind of just disappointed. But the sandstorm scene is great. Probably the one I would have went with if I picked a scene from this film, but I didn't.
Valid.
I think the chaos and action of it, I think what you should do is just, this is one of the one movies that I would recommend people watch on 2 times speed, because I think you'd get a lot of it, because this plot and the story makes no sense, but I think the action zoomed up would be really fucking cool. And it'd be less time.
Makes no sense.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make
Hunt for gas. We don't fill up.
How does that not make any sense?
You can't get back if you don't have gas. I don't know how it works in Australia, but guess what? You have to fill up at some point. And 18-wheelers that shoot fire from them, the gas is going to run out pretty quick. Again, over sand.
Maybe it's a Prius that shoots fire from it.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
We've got a fire shooting Prius. It's half it's a hybrid. It's a fire shooting hybrid.
If they all went into the Shell station and started shooting at each other, it would have made a lot more sense. But instead they just drive. Okay, well, you're out of gas and dead.
We got to come and go in the middle of this desert.
Anyway, I very much enjoyed the movie. I would say a similar thing to Boatman, not that everything is the same, but that it does just feel like one long scene to an extent. So it's hard to distinguish out certain. I mean, there are certain parts that I like of the movie, but I don't even know that they would qualify as scenes. So yeah, it really is just the case of like, which cool thing do you like, from the action scenes in this movie, and this is certainly an option and a good one. So
valid. Now we go over to Scott, I believe. Scott, you're 37.
All right, my 37. Let me double check. It is the pencil trick from The Dark Knight. All right. So even though this isn't technically Joker's intro into the movie, it kind of feels like it is because he's in disguise for most of the opening scene. And it's like it's where, I mean, you instantly realize he's going to be like an iconic performance and iteration of this character. He's perfectly balanced. Heath Ledger's perfectly balancing the like droll, dark comedy of the Joker, but also the super intimidating side. And like when he comes in, they're not really taking him seriously. You can see, he's like, we have to kill the Batman. And they're just like, oh, ha, 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 ha. If it's so simple, why haven't you done? But then like this pencil trick that he does, like kind of shifts the mood of the scene completely, right? It's just this sort of shocking thing. You don't exactly know where he's going with this trick, and then bang, and the dude is presumably dead. And so that is just a really cool moment, but also I think the scene's really well written. I think all these movies are really well written. It's what makes them some of the best comic book movies of all time. And it's there are moments of humor in it, like the when he stands up and they're like, oh, you think you could just steal from us and walk away? And he just goes, yeah. And Heath Ledger's delivery of that line is perfect. But yeah, in general, it's just about the introduction of that character and that performance, and it just like gets off on such a perfect note that right from the outset you're about to watch something like completely legendary. But again, capturing both sides to this character in such a engaging way.
Yeah.
Oh, I think.
Yeah, that's a good moment. The moment of the scene that you didn't really touch on is when he confronts Lau on the TV. I feel like I'm cutting out a little bit, but anyway, I'm going to keep going anyway. He confronts Lau on the TV, and basically like the television. I know the squealers when I see them, and I think that's a great little moment. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, great. I'm really surprised that this is the only person to have the pencil trick. I think there's like two that are really like outstanding. Well, I think there's more than just two outstanding, but like this is the one that I automatically think to. I think the heist at the very beginning is really good. But like I remember when that scene, this scene for the first time, this is probably like the most like the kids in school thinking they could do the impression like to a T, like want to see a magic trick, and I'm just like, oh boy, this is starting something I wish didn't. But like I just think it's like, and I think up to that point, it was the gags. It was like the gun with the like thing pop out for Joker. We never saw this ruthless side of Joker from like a movie like at that point. So when he like kills the guy instantly, and like that's just something you're like, okay, we're on a completely different level. And I think this is the first exact scene that I know the first time he talks, but this is like the first scene that was like the people that doubted Heath Ledger are completely wrong because this is something we haven't seen before. So yeah, great pick. I wish I kind of had something from it, but again, this movie is like next year probably on the YLS ban list of talking about.
Yeah. Did everyone else talk about this scene?
No. You can go ahead, Jake.
Okay, I'll just say that yeah, even though I'm not like the biggest fan of The Dark Knight, I do like the scene, and yeah, like Scott was saying, it's not his initial introduction, but it does really like showcase like why the Joker is effective and menacing, and why he is the smartest man in the room, essentially. I do also just like it's Mike. I'm gonna forget the guy's name. It's Black Dynamite. What's his name? Michael Jai White. Thank you, Michael Jai White. I really like him in the scene. It's like 500,000 for him dead, 1 million alive, just so I can beat the shit out of him. I like that sort of that scene as well. Yeah, no, it's a really good scene. So yeah.
Jack.
Yeah, no, this is an incredible scene. It was absolutely in the running. Like I said before, I've only picked one scene per film, just to keep it to limit how many times I can put a scene or a movie on my list. This was absolutely in the running, along with a number of other scenes from this film. It's a top 10 movie of all time for me, so there's a very good chance there's a scene that shows up later.
Valid. So yeah, Scott, your next pick.
This is one of the reasons I'm glad Kirk's not here. But number 36, I have The Audition from Mulholland Drive. Oh, spoilers for my number 33. Yeah, bye, Cody. So this scene is where Betty, which is sort of the first iteration of Naomi Watts's character that we see in the movie, goes to try out for a film. She's come to Hollywood with aspirations of being a big actress. This is the first time we really see her doing any acting, and she goes in to act in a romantic scene, basically with this older man. And there's a lot of ideas swirling around in this movie, and I think one that has always stuck with me is sort of the way it depicts how Hollywood sort of uses up and spits out these young actresses after they've like either grown older or just like will not do what the men in Hollywood want them to do anymore. And this scene sort of like, it crystallizes that idea, because it's this like romantic scene, but of course the guy is like determined to make it weird and like is moving in really close to her and like putting his hands on her. But she does not resist his advances, presumably because she understands that this is what she's going to have to endure in order to actually make it in this industry. And instead, she turns in like this incredible performance within a performance. And then you add in the fact that we learn later on that she's playing two characters basically, Betty, and then the more jaded version of her, Diane, who has been through the ringer and again been sort of spit out and had a relationship with this director and cast aside. But and so there's so many things that Naomi Watts is doing in the scene, and I've said before it's one of my 5 favorite performances in any movie. What she's doing in this movie, there's so many layers of like, again, you almost see in this moment the two characters like conflating, and you don't really know which version of her that you're watching. But ultimately the audition concludes, and everyone in the room is just like giving her this applause or whatever. And they're kind of applauding her for the wrong reasons, because like she's played this basically because she's gone along with this really sexual like version of the scene that this other dude wanted. But also as a just appreciator of film and the art of acting, I too want to applaud after watching it, because I think Naomi Watts is so breathtaking in this scene.
Yeah. I think this scene, I don't know. It didn't necessarily. I think it's a good performance scene. I kind of have similar feelings to this that I do to the Hugh Jackman scene from Prisoners, and that I think it's a good performance, but I don't really know if I really love the actual scene that performance is a part of. It's a good acting moment from Watts. But I don't particularly, to me, I don't know if there's really any scene from this movie that would really hit, though I do like the movie overall. I think that it's fine. Everyone else on the audition from Mulholland Drive?
I've been told I would like this movie. I haven't seen it yet. I'll get to it eventually.
Who has told you that information?
No one you know.
I mean, he does like freaking Requiem for a Dream, so who knows?
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I think Requiem for a Dream is good. I think this movie is an abomination. The worst thing about watching this movie, and again, I'm going to just be on my soapbox for just a second. I once watched this, I think, for Scott. And the worst thing ever is I put a bad review up, and then somebody in this community, I'm not going to out the person, but a person messaged me and said, you should watch this a couple more times and I can help you understand what you are missing from this movie. On that note, that person, if you've ever seen Billy Madison and Steve Buscemi's character is writing a bunch of people's names down the line and crossing them out, he has been added to a list. That is one of the most insulting messages I've ever received in my entire life. Because I don't believe you. The reason that I give it a negative review is not because I didn't understand the complex elements of all. It's just not a movie for me. But that happened. So I'm outing that in this moment.
I need to see. I really need to see this. I like Eraserhead a lot.
I will say, Jake, you should see this movie.
This is definitely right up my alley.
I think even Cody would agree this is a Jake.
I'm shocked you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
I didn't know you hadn't seen it, and I'm very surprised.
Honestly weird. Anyway, Scott, you're 35.
Sure. My 35 is Mason Leaves for College from Boyhood.
All right.
Yeah. So to explain why I love this scene, there's a moment in Before Sunrise when Celine gives this speech about the space between us. If there is a God, it's here in the space between us. And so much of Linklater's best movies, in my opinion, are sort of about that idea that and specifically in Boyhood, it's like how you define your life and the moments that make you who you are not the big milestones and the birthdays and the graduations and all that, but it's these seemingly mundane things that happen in between those milestones. And that's mostly what we see in Boyhood. And this scene, which is where he is packing up, ready to go, and he is with his mother, really just sort of takes on that idea head on, because she starts talking about how, well, here we go. Here's my youngest child going off to college. Up till now, my whole life has been a series of milestones. I get divorced, I get remarried, I got my master's degree. My older daughter goes to college, my son goes to college, and now my son's gone. There's nothing else for me. The next thing that's going to happen in my life is I'm going to die. And it's such a heartbreaking moment, and you don't really expect that the movie is going to go there, because it's not necessarily the type of thing that you expect from this movie or from Linklater even, to go in that sort of cynical direction almost. And of course, Mason says to her, like, well, I think you're skipping over a few things. But again, what I love so much about the scene, in addition to Patricia Arquette giving a fantastic performance, is that it really confronts that central philosophy in a lot of Linklater's best films, because his mom has defined her life in terms of these, big events. And now she's gotten to a point where it's like, oh, well, there are no more big events. So, what is my life now? And it just kind of shows, I think, maybe the danger of thinking about your life in that way, and for not, appreciating every moment that you have. Because ultimately, again, the moments that we see in the movie are not the big milestones, but they are the moments who end up making Mason the person that he is. And really it applies to all the characters too, because we're not just seeing Mason come of age, but we're seeing his sister and mom and dad also. So it's, a brilliant, capper to the film. And, like I said, just really, really tackles the idea, one of the central ideas at play in, many of my favorite films by my absolute favorite filmmaker. So I had to put it on this list. It's definitely the scene from this movie that I think should be picked.
Hello.
I say, do it just like Koho.
Hi.
Hi. How are you guys doing? Boyhood. You know what? It's a choice that you made. Proud of you. Good for you. Hope you're doing a good time. Oh, look, he's back. Have a good night.
Seinfeld has become my least favorite show of all time. And if you know why, you know why. Anyway, Scott, just to be clear, because you cut out almost entirely for me when you were talking, because I think I might have your scene wrong. Is the scene that you're talking about like the Patricia Arquette speech?
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Right before, when he's packing up to leave. Yeah.
I had the completely wrong scene, because I had him actually like going to college with this song Hero playing. That's the scene I watched beforehand. That I was like, wow, that's kind of a stupid pick. This is a good pick. I really like this scene. This is a good speech. This is the scene that won Patricia Arquette her Oscar, and I think it's deserved. She's really good in this scene. I like this speech. Everybody else on this scene.
Can we get Koho back?
I haven't seen this movie. I'm hit and miss on Linklater. There's one miss for me that I really want to rewatch, because I don't think, I don't know, maybe it was just a bad day for me, but I haven't seen this one. So
I've seen this movie one time. I could not tell you what the hell it was. I just remember not loving this movie at all.
I have seen this movie only once. I do think this is definitely Arquette's like standout scene. This is the scene where she wins the Oscar for, essentially. I do. It's a fantastic scene, and I definitely get a lot of emotional, like, sort of feelings from it. Especially since I relate a lot of Patricia Arquette to my mom in the scene, and just sort of like the fact that my youngest brother is graduated and is now an adult. Feel very similar to this scene. I do want to rewatch Boyhood. I do like Linklater a lot, and the gimmick behind this movie is just really fascinating, and I wish I could see more films like this. I mean, Linklater is currently working on another one, so we'll see that in like 25 years or so.
17 years or something.
17 years.
With Ben Platt.
And
anyway,
Beanie Feldstein,
two nepotism babies. Anyway, did everybody talk about this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Scott, 34.
Yeah, 34. So last week, Jake said he wasn't going to have a Spider-Man scene this week. And so I assumed that many of you thought that meant we wouldn't be talking about Spider-Man. And maybe we still won't, because this could be a yikes. But my number 34 is the train rescue from Spider-Man 2.
Yikes.
Yikes.
Okay.
I get to say it before you, Jack.
Yeah.
All right. So, Jack, you're 33.
All right. Yeah. My 33 is Arthur Lee Allen's interrogation in Zodiac. The one at
Yikes.
Nice.
For this episode.
Awesome.
Cody, you're 33.
Okay, my 30. My 33 is the ending to When Harry Met Sally. Just to make sure, Jack, your interrogation of who?
Arthur Lee Allen. They're in the break room.
I'm not the Zodiac, and if I
You
was,
have
I
the
should
same
win.
scene. You have the same.
Okay. Okay, that's what I did that once. I was wrong.
You have him listed as John Carroll Lynch, which is the actor's name.
Yeah.
Jack
Okay.
has Arthur
Just
Lee
saying,
Allen,
just mention.
guy's name. So you both just have different people.
Okay, so When Harry Met Sally is it's there's another movie that's really close, but it's like one of my favorite rom-coms of all time. I absolutely love this movie, and I love I love how the film is just put together, how they meet up over three parts of their life. But this ending is just something that, like, when people don't think I have a heart, which is completely valid and understandable, and I don't agree that I have one. This is one of those scenes that, like, makes me like a super happy scene. It's just basically he's running back to her at the end of the film, and he's like, she's like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't do this. Like, you've told me this basically this entire movie, this entire life. This is who you are as a person and where you're at, and we're never going to be on that side. I put myself out there and it was denied, blah, blah, blah. I'm not doing this. And then Billy Crystal just goes through the rants of what he loves about her. And it's the little things, like you have to have the house set at the certain degree mark, and you have to have 7 different things to make a simple salad on the thing. And you're so, but the thing is, like, I can't imagine living one day without you. I just think it's a beautiful ending. There's another scene from When Harry Met Sally, but I don't love that scene as much as everybody else. I know it's like iconic, but I don't get it's cool, but like and funny. But this is the scene that I like will always gravitate towards, the ending where they get back together and he confesses like everything he loves about her. So yeah.
I'm personally on the third option of the When Harry Met Sally scenes. I go with the karaoke scene. I think that
I'm shocked. I am absolutely shocked that the karaoke scene is your favorite.
Yeah,
As soon as we've seen you perform "Bust a Move" live, I'll tell you, I completely understand why the karaoke scene is high.
Anyway, the ending is really good, though. The ending, I think, probably legitimately one of the greatest quotes in a movie ever is like, when you meet, I'm paraphrasing here, but when you meet the person you want to spend the rest of your life with, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. And I think that's a great quote. It's a great, like, I think the trope of running, to get to the person and then you have the confession, it's a trope, but I think it's a trope that works usually. So yeah, no, good scene. I like the pick. Everybody else on the end of When Harry Met Sally.
I still have not seen When Harry Met Sally. I'm terrible.
I saw it for the first time like a month ago, and it's fantastic. Prior to seeing it, the only scene I had ever known from this movie was the one that Cody referenced earlier with the diner and the faking.
I'll have what she's having.
I couldn't think of the line. Well, that scene. This scene blows that one out of the water for me. Had I seen the movie prior to submitting a list, this might have made the list. So great pick, Cody.
Yeah, it is kind of tropey, but also you have to wonder, like, was this kind of the movie that made it a trope, right? Because this movie, it just became has become so iconic and the quintessential rom-com, arguably. And so maybe it just like hasn't aged as well because like you watch like the final speech that he's giving, like you're saying, Cody, and it's like, maybe feels a little bit cheesy or played out, but that's probably just because there have been many failed imitators of it since then. And you can almost see like Nora Ephron in like a caffeinated state, just like writing down all these, little lines that she could think of, like, coming to her. And like this is kind of her magnum opus. It feels like this scene of like, like you're saying, the little details and everything. I mean, it's wonderfully written. But she was just like spitting fire when writing this. It feels like so. It's a great scene. It's just with time, I don't know that it's one of my favorites because I have seen other similar scenes like it, even though this is probably the original and the best.
All right, Jake, we go to your 33.
All right, so probably the scene, the least. Actually, I haven't really pitched the scene. It is just definitely a scene that I absolutely love that no one ever has ever seen, that we should all talk about more often. It's the ending to the Holy Mountain. Hell yes. So at this point, the alchemist has led the richest people on Earth to the Holy Mountain. He has told the thief to leave as he does not need to achieve enlightenment and immortality. And the alchemist at this point shows these people, the immortals that are at the Holy Mountain, and it turns out they're all just dummies. They're fake. There was no real, there wasn't really a group of immortals. The Holy Mountain is just an idea at this, basically is what he talks about. And then he tells these people that it is just an idea. There is no such thing as the Holy Mountain. And he says, is this reality? No, it is a film. And he tells the camera to pan out, and we see the lights and the mic, and it's all just a set. He tells them that this isn't real. This is nothing. We need to ascend to a newer place of enlightenment, and tells the audience goodbye to the Holy Mountain. Real life awaits us. And they walk away, almost like walk into the sunset shot as the screen fades to white. Real beautiful and absolutely love. I'm a big fan of the whole philosophy and all the movies that kind of create the sort of like the debate and the idea of what is real and what is reality. And the movie is just like, no, this isn't reality. This is just a film. This is just something that you're watching through a screen. Just the ideas behind it is really fascinating. This movie is also just, I would highly recommend. It's the Ben-Hur of surreal art films. Take with that what you will. This is just one of those endings that should be remembered as one of the greatest of all time. Incredible film, unlike anything you've ever seen.
I'm not going to be too hard on Jake here because I only watched the ending. So it is completely possible that and it kind of sounds like in context, this is a big deal. This seems fine. Like, I'm a sucker for meta stuff, and even then this is fine. Like, I wasn't particularly entertained. This kind of felt like nothing. Has anyone else seen The Holy Mountain?
No.
Yeah, no, didn't think so. Scott, over to your 33.
Okay, kind of a similar boat where I'm talking about the ending of a movie that probably a lot of people haven't seen, but this is the ending for the movie Phoenix. We're actually going to be talking about this on the roundtable recording this weekend, but I don't want to spoil it, but at the same time, it's so good that I don't think you can spoil it even by describing what actually happens. But basically, this is a movie about a Jewish woman who survives a concentration camp, but is badly burned on her face and gets facial reconstruction surgery. Ends up looking similar to herself, but not so similar that people know it's her. Like people don't think it is who she actually is. And she decides to track down her husband, who some people believe is the one who actually sold her out to the Nazis in the first place. And he doesn't recognize her. And instead, he sees that she looks like his wife and wants her to kind of play act with him so that he can get basically the reparations that she is owed by the Nazi government for what happened. And so it's a fascinating, sort of Hitchcockian story that plays out, of identity that plays out. And it all culminates when they have staged her great return from the concentration camp. again, her husband still not knowing it's actually her, and they go to the house of these friends, and the husband begins to play a song on the piano, and she begins to sing, the main character played by Nina Hoss, and as she sings, we see that her husband starts to recognize from the voice that it is her, and then he sees the tattoo on her arm that shows, that she was in the concentration camp. And as the scene goes on, he realizes that this is actually his wife, the woman that he's been dealing with the whole movie. And now she presumably, you know, understands everything that has happened, and he's been exposed. And also, there's the undercurrent of like, this is about their relationship, but it's also about all of the Jewish people who came back from these concentration camps, and how do they go on? How do they interact with the very people who, put them through the worst tragedy, the worst event in human history? And that's what I think makes the movie a masterpiece. But this scene is like unbelievable, and she just walks away at the end, and he's just left sitting there at the piano, like with all of that to weigh on him. It's a stunning ending. Pretty much anyone who's seen this movie talks about how amazing the ending is, and like it lives up to all the hype. Trust me.
Yeah, so I watched the ending and only the ending because I had short notice. So the ending did not make any sense to me. I honestly should have maybe asked Scott for the context I needed for the scene, because I had no clue. Sounds kind of cool now that I hear Scott talking about it, but because I haven't seen the rest of the context. Basically, it's not going to help you. It's not going to hurt you. It's just kind of there. So anyway, has anyone else seen this movie? I'm going to assume no.
I have not, no.
Okay. So then we're going to go over to Jack.
I'm about to see it.
Jack, you're 32.
Yeah, no, I just muted because I've heard great things about that movie and didn't want the ending spoiled.
We'll watch it and then watch the round table in a month.
Okay, then. Will do. My 32, we talked about a scene earlier tonight that has been parodied and memed to death, but still works, still has all of its power, and this is another one of those. No, I am your father from Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, I know. Whatever. But hey, here's the thing. This scene still works today, and the score that kicks in once James Earl Jones says the iconic line, and you get Luke's reaction. It's just a brilliant scene that, while it shocked audiences back in 1980, and even the cast members that weren't Mark Hamill and James Earl Jones, because only they, apart from some of the crew, knew the twist. Harrison Ford had no idea. Carrie Fisher had no idea. So knowing that, but it still works today so well. A moment like this does not last over 40 years if it falls apart over time. And this one has stood the test of time so well. Just a brilliant moment, and the real turning point in the original trilogy, and one that I just could watch at any point. Brilliant moment.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, like, there are better lightsaber fights in the movies than this. This is not top 2, maybe not even top 3. I think there are better lightsaber fights in the prequels. There are better lightsaber fights in the sequel trilogy. There's better lightsaber fights in the original trilogy. So this is not a top tier lightsaber fight for me. So it really does force the scene to stand on the actual drama, which, like, I'm sorry, if I'm going to go to a scene for dramatic confrontation, I'm not going to do it between Mark Hamill and Robot Man. Like, I'm sorry. Maybe I just have Star Wars fatigue, but this scene is fine. It's fine. There's nothing really special about it besides the fact that everyone quotes it and says that it's great. But it's fine. You want actual drama in this, go to Return of the Jedi. There's actually some decent dramatic moments. This is just, it's Mark Hamill being like, "That's impossible!" oh, and then also you have, Darth Vader just be like, "No, I'm your father." Like it's not a particularly notable like confrontation.
Why are you the way that you are?
Oh, shut up, pirate boy. Anyway, everybody else on this scene?
Not better than the pod race, but that's my business.
That is a hill you're going to die on, and that is hilarious.
That's
by yourself too.
I mean, this scene does not have a two-headed Greg Proops like doing race commentary. So
you know what that is.
It's time to stop.
See, no, this movie didn't need Greg Proops. It needed like the entire cast of Whose Line Is It Anyway? And William Brady, Colin Rock.
Okay, Drew Carey is Darth Maul.
Anyway, this scene is good, but it's another one like the filibuster scene we talked about, where it's like there's nothing really new that I feel like I can say about this. Like everyone knows the scene. Sure, it's good. It probably doesn't hit like it. It definitely doesn't hit like it did when it originally came out. So there's also that aspect of it. But it's not my favorite Star Wars scene. It's just like the most famous one.
Jake, Cody?
If I hadn't had seen Toy Story 2 before watching Empire Strikes Back, I probably would have found the dramatic reveal a lot. I would have held a lot more, but I had unfortunately seen Toy Story 2, which was directly parodying the scene. So unfortunately, it's the impact is lessened for me, even though I do think it's really effective. It's one of those movies where I just wish I'd seen it knowing absolutely nothing about it beforehand, because it definitely would have played better for me. But I'm just with you also, Boat. I have Star Wars fatigue. I don't really care.
But Jake, what if Darth Vader turned out to be the future version of Luke Skywalker?
No one would ever do that. That would not.
I kind of regret asking you to be the host. Anyways, listen. I've just had to come to terms with this. Star Wars sucks. And I don't think there's an easier way to put this. I don't love a majority of the films as much as I used to. Like, I think they're cool. I think what they were, but we entered a community that has abused these films to a crazy degree, and that's our fault. That's 100% our fault. Why it's had its own trivia leagues. It's had questions. There's more stuff I know probably from this scene than the flippin' "No, I am your father." Like what? Like how long is his trench coat that he's wearing? Like there's different things. Like how far up his wrist did he get cut? Like there's just some stupid shit about this. I don't understand how you can even put this in the conversation anymore. Not only, yes, is it probably the most iconic from Star Wars? Sure, I'll give you that. But not anymore. It's been memed to death, and it has so much weight because up until 2000 or 99 or whatever, there was no other Star Wars movies at that point. They ran their course. They waited for a long time, and even then, until 2005, there was nothing. And then we waited. Now we get a Star Wars something every some series or something. So it's just so ingrained in everything. I don't think this is like a great scene overall. And it's cool the first time. It is really cool the first time if you don't know what's happening, but I could never just go back to the scene and be like, yeah, great, cool. No, okay. Plus he whines like a bitch. Oh, no, shut up. Like, fuck off. You're supposed to be the Jedi that leads us against Darth Vader? I wish Darth Vader would kill his ass.
Lose his arm. It's a
but then when he actually did become that Jedi, people hated it. But anyway.
Oh, shut up. He's not in pain because they cauterized the wound right through it, so that's why he's not screaming for that.
All right, can you
fuck, I don't even know what machine is. Hold on.
It's the
it's the interrogation scene from John Carroll from Zodiac. The interrogation. I love Zodiac to a bad degree. I've always said this. I should probably seek help, but I'm not going to at this point. I really enjoy it. And this interrogation is it's not very long, but there's a lot to unpack in that just brief 3-4 minute scene. Basically, where he sits down with him and he starts talking about where he was like investigated and talked about, and he's like, and then he just keeps adding stuff to make the interrogation dig deeper. Like, oh, well, the blood on those knives in my car was from the chicken, and like Ruffalo's like, what? He's like, oh, well, it's from the blood of the chicken. Like, I had chicken that morning. That's why I had knives in my car. And he's like, it starts to get to a point where it turns like, oh, I told my neighbor they didn't call in, but he died like a week later. Didn't think about following up. And like, everything keeps going. And you can just feel the tension, like, and like why he got fired from his job. And they're like, and he just like blank stares and is like, I'm not the Zodiac. And they're like, yeah, okay, like that's not what we're talking about. And like he's like, can I see your watch? And he passes the watch around, and the word at the very top of the thing is Zodiac, and that's when they all like gleam in and like, and he's just talking nonchalant and blah blah blah, and it's just the body language from John Carroll Lynch in this scene is so good because where he's able to tell, but you think you're face to face right now with the Zodiac killer and how he's talking and how he's interacting and how he's telling stuff. He's like, oh, so you're ambidextrous. No, I never said that. They tried to make me, but no. And like his face, like it's intimidating sitting across from him the entire. And then the bell ring, the go back to work, and he's like, I'm free to go. Like just basically puts them on the line. Like you ain't got nothing to hold me, so I'm gonna go. Like. I just think it's an incredible scene. When I think of Zodiac, besides the basement, this is like the automatic one I have to think of. Like as soon as I think of Zodiac, so yeah,
yeah.
Jack,
sorry, yeah. This scene is brilliant. Everything from John Carroll Lynch's body language in this scene to when Mark Ruffalo and I can't think of the other actors' names right now, but when they notice the boots, when they notice the watch, it's and the tension starts building and building, and you're just sitting there like, this guy is absolutely the Zodiac. Like I'm sitting there watching this movie, and David Fincher has convinced me by the end, this guy is the Zodiac. And when he just stares deadpan stares at Ruffalo and the others and says, I'm not the Zodiac. And if I was, I certainly wouldn't tell you. And it's just like chills down my spine every single time. The scene is brilliant. If the Academy wanted to nominate John Carroll Lynch for just that scene, I would have been fine with that. But they didn't. So, whatever. But no, this scene is fantastic.
I always feel really bad for the real guy's family and like him after this movie, and because now we found out that he was not actually the Zodiac. So I just kind of feel, I feel bad for this guy because it was just Gary. Gary was the Zodiac. We never did. Yeah, I don't think there is a Gary in this movie. But anyway, this is a great scene. This is a great scene. This is not my top tier from Zodiac. I think you mentioned the other great scene from Zodiac, which is Basement. And I don't know if that's already come up or if that could come up. But
that was last week.
Okay, yeah. I personally find The Basement better, but this is a really good scene, mainly because I think John Carroll Lynch is one of our most underappreciated character actors working today. So, Scott, Jake, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is a top 10 all-time movie for me. I already had a scene from it. It was the scene from the jail with Clea Duvall, but there's a few scenes that definitely could qualify here. I mean, many scenes, honestly, but yeah, I love this one. It is so tense. I love when he just like randomly out of nowhere is like, what, is this about like as for the bloody knives or whatever that I had in the back of my car? And they're just like, what? Like he just volunteers that out of nowhere. So there's obviously something off about the guy, but you're trying to figure out, is it because he's the Zodiac or is it because he's just a normal sicko? But either way, it's a perfect performance from John Carroll Lynch to keep you in that ambiguity.
Yeah, this is really well done. It's very similar in my mind to the scene from last week when we talked about the scene from Memories of Murder, where it's just like, I just want to believe this guy is the killer, so this can all be over, even though all the evidence doesn't support the fact that it is him. A little bits of it, but he's a little weird. But you just want it to be over at this point, and you just want to believe that he is the killer, so we can just be done with this. But it's not, and it's just another loose end that's just there's no resolution to it. I think is done really well in this scene. It's definitely just the tension. I mean, this is why Finch is just one of the greatest at it when it comes to just the way he makes films and creating that anxiety. Great scene. I really need to rewatch the Zodiac because everyone's got a scene from it. I feel embarrassed not to have one.
Well, we're at your 32, so let's see if you got something on par with the interrogation scene from Zodiac.
Well, they both these scenes definitely create anxiety and tension in my mind. I got another scene from Jackass number 2. I'm sorry, guys. It's the Toro Toto scene from Jackass number 2. So the setup is that Johnny Knoxville, Bam Margera, Ryan Dunn, and Chris Pontius are on a tater-totter setup. They're on each side, and basically a bull is just going straight for each of them as it goes around, and they've just got to jump up and make sure that the bull doesn't hit them. I will never think, this is a scene that I rewatch all the time. There's a tension and anxiety. You just don't want them to get hit by this bull. And Jackass number 2 uses the bulls probably the most. I think there's one where where Knoxville pretends to be camouflaged. I think that's in this one, but this scene just really is all about the anxiety. It's nothing, extremely ridiculous as far as the horrible, the shit stuff and all that stuff. It's just creating anxiety and tension. And there's a point where 2 of them have been knocked out, and it's just Bam and Knoxville, and they're just jumping up and down as the ball doesn't hit them. And Knoxville is the one that stays there till the very end, where he's just getting hit by the ball. I love the scene. It's really fun. It's just a perfect setup, and the execution of it, I think, is done really, really well. It's just fantastic and fun to watch.
Maybe I mean, obviously, Jackass is clearly not built for me. Because I'm watching this scene, and I'm anxious, but I'm more just what sick, twisted, this feels like this is the dark ending of some dramatic movie of these people are just this feels like a Black Mirror episode of, for entertainment, people are forced to endanger themselves with a bull. I'm sorry, but Johnny Knoxville and Steve-O and all those people are terrible human beings and psychopaths.
They're not terrible.
You had your time to talk, and they are. I'm sorry, they are. Maybe you and your friends want to go punch each other in the nuts, but me and my friends can play Pokemon cards. That's what I did, and that was good enough for me. Anyway, I think that this is no, thank you. Everybody else on this,
I've said it already on this episode. I haven't seen this
of
movie.
Human nature and what we
I
have
want
done.
to know when all is said and done, how many total movies were represented on Jake's list? Because I think it's probably 60, honestly. The frequency we're at this point.
I mean, it doesn't matter the variety of the movies. It's just about the scenes.
I guess that's true.
So when you did the... Shut the fuck up. It's my turn now. Anyways, when you picked the first one, I was like, that's a really good scene. And then I was thinking back to scenes from Jackass number 2 that I like. And this is the little one that I thought of. I was like, I hope this is on his list at some point. This, when Chris Pontius is sitting across from it right before the bull gets released and goes, it's going to be a bloodbath. I laugh every time. Ryan Dunn gets hit and then he stumbles and then hits full on into the fence.
He hits the wall and he's trying to jump out, yeah.
And then Bam gets off and it's then just bolts, nothing comes out of it. Chris Pontius gets his leg hit, and then all of a sudden he looks at Johnny and goes, hold on a second. He goes, hold on a second. There's a bull. What do you mean? Hold on. He escapes, and then Johnny just completely gets wrecked by this bull at the end. I've watched that moment probably 20 times in my life just solo. I think it's just a brilliant moment. So good job, Jake. If I was hosting, you'd have a really good shot of winning this week.
Scott, you're 32.
Okay. I was gonna say I have nothing to add on this. All right, let me steer this back towards high art. My 32 is "My Love, My Life" from Mamma Mia. Here we go again. This is such a moving scene, honestly. And ABBA's music, I think, is very emotional in general. I think that's one of the best qualities about it, why it's drawn in so many people, because it's just not afraid to be just effervescent about whatever emotion it wants you to feel. And a lot of times, they have a lot of joyful songs, and we certainly get that throughout both of the Mamma Mia films. But there are some slower, more ballad-esque songs, and this is one of them. And this scene happens at the end of the movie when they basically sort of compare when the young Donna, which is Lily James, is having Sophie christened as a baby, with Sophie doing the same thing for her child that has just been born. And obviously, we know that Donna has died. That's Meryl Streep's character. We learned that early on in this movie. And so this turns into this sort of dream sequence of a sort where, again, we start off with Lily James, and she like goes down the aisle of the sort of church and like looks down into this reflecting pool where her child is going to be christened. And then her reflection changes and it's Meryl Streep, and it like, pans back up, and now we have Sophie, the older Sophie, Amanda Seyfried, you know, having this moment where she is getting to, quote unquote, see her mother like in the same way. Again, it's contrasted with the moment. It's compared with the moment from so many years ago when she did the same with her daughter. So there's that lovely juxtaposition, and just the fact that it's Meryl Streep, right? We haven't seen her for the whole movie, but like just her presence carries so much weight just because it's Meryl Streep. And then when you factor in, what's happened with the character, just when we see her there, it's like an emotional moment. Just her being revealed, and it's so touching seeing them sing to each other. And it's My Love, My Life. It's a beautiful song. And eventually, it's kind of Sophie moving on from the death of her mother in the end, and moving on to her new life with the new hotel, her child, family. And so it's a wonderful bit of closure. Although if they want to make a third Mamma Mia, I'm not gonna say no. I'm definitely not gonna say no. But yeah, it's such a good movie. Like honestly, this moment just is a perfect emotional note that rewards you for all of the other sort of joyful scenes. And obviously, the dancing queen scene is really good too. But this one, like, I have legitimately gotten chills watching this scene before, which is crazy to say about this movie, but it's so good.
This scene's fine. Doesn't really move the needle for me. I'd say that if you're gonna pick a scene, I'd say either Dancing Queen or I really like the Waterloo scene. For me, that's kind of the best number in the movie. I know that's the number that made Cody walk out of the movie, but that's the number that kind of tells you what the movie's gonna be, and that wasn't a Cody movie, and that's okay. But everybody else on this scene from Here We Go Again. I know Cody didn't see this scene because he walked out.
As soon as Waterloo happened, my wife said, "You can go if you want to." And I said, "Thank God I picked her up after." I've heard it's better than the first one, but I ain't seen the first one either. So
it is better than the first one.
Yeah.
Having just watched the first one like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I don't know. I'm excited to watch this one because I didn't hate the first one. But no, I haven't seen this one yet.
Jake?
Yeah, I've seen this one. I'm just not really the biggest fan of Mamma Mia. Like, it's just not a movie that I really like connect or really have any interest or get much entertainment from. I do like the scene though, and the parallels between Seyfried and Meryl Streep, or Lily James, I guess in this case, it's done really well. Yeah, just not really my thing.
Sure. Jack, you're 31.
All right, my 31. It's My Name is Gladiator from Gladiator.
Yikes!
Yep.
Cody?
Mine is I Drink Your Milkshake. There will be
I had
blood.
this earlier.
No one else? Oh man,
I had a
I was
different
hoping.
This is a late exclusion from me.
Oh, just too many Spider-Man scenes.
Too many
PTA.
jackass scenes, let's be real.
You're a jackass. Okay. Anyways,
At least I don't go around kicking my friends in the nuts and filming it and calling that 5 major motion pictures.
You've been in the room with Koho. You should have kicked him in the nuts a couple times. Okay. Anyways, here we go.
He did one try to punch me because I was going to eat his Swiss roll. That's a.
Okay. Anyways, I really don't care about the Kingsman meetings. PTA. I want to put this on the record. I do not hate Paul Thomas Anderson. I don't. I hate half of his movies. But the other movies I actually love. And this is one of them that I absolutely love. Daniel Day-Lewis in this movie, it's my 4th favorite winner to win Best Actor. He's the clear 4th for me. I think he's absolutely incredible to see. And the ones, did we talk about the baptism? We talked about the baptism scene, right? Yeah. We had a very popular, we loved baptisms in this episode. We talked about a lot of baptism scenes. But this scene, I love that scene, but this scene is, I think, the best scene in the movie for me. And I hate that it's been memed at this point of the, like, I drink your milkshake because it's, like, a ridiculous thing. But when he's coming, like, and basically putting Paul Dano, like, down in the scene and just, like, screaming at him and, like, going through the motions and, you know, at the end of the film. If you haven't seen it, I don't know if it's just, like, a highly, like, watched movie. Like, I know in this community a lot of people really like it, so I don't want to tell too much of it, but his acting in this scene is absolutely incredible. The rage that he's able, like, I don't know if it's a rage is what I would call it, but, like, where he's able to, like, take the conversation and, like, do the classic, like, get him in, I drink your milkshake. I think it's just brilliant. I think the scene is absolutely one of the best. Like, I understand why it's memed because his vein in his forehead sticking out. He's screaming. He's throwing shit. It's a brilliant scene. But I drink your milkshake. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, no, this scene is fantastic. Daniel Day-Lewis is. I couldn't. I couldn't add too much to what's been said about this scene. Daniel Day-Lewis is fantastic. He absolutely deserves his Oscar. This scene and the baptism scene both prove that. But it's when he's it's like, yes, it's the there's great moments in this scene, like when he screams, "I drink your milkshake" to Paul Dano, but it's when he's just sitting there looking at Paul Dano saying, "Say it again," when he keeps making him repeat, God is a superstition, I am a false prophet. He's like, "We can't hear you in the back, say it louder." And, like, where he's just toying with Dano at that point. I love this moment so much. It's one of my favorite films I got to see for film studies in high school, and I watch this scene often. Definitely one of the best actor winners out there.
Yeah, you guys pretty much covered it. Great scene, great confrontation between these two characters, and really, while Plainview is in a broken state, and he's essentially bringing Dano down to his level, revealing that pretty much nothing is going to matter for him anymore. And I think that's a great moment. It's phenomenal acting from Day-Lewis, but that scene doesn't work if Dano isn't working off him as well. So great acting from both. Jake, Scott, why did this miss for you?
This was a late exclusion. I really wanted to, it was on my list for the longest time, and then I just had to include a scene where Green Goblin kills a bunch of people with pumpkin bomb. So, there's just some things you have to, like, make tough choices on. But this is a fantastic scene. I love There Will Be Blood, obviously. I love the scene. I love the whole ending behind it, and just how Plainview sort of just gets Eli to just admit the worst thing that he could possibly say as a Christian, just the whole idea of I'm a false prophet, God is a superstition, and then just admits that, yeah, there is no oil there. It's a whole thing called drainage, and that whole sequence is great. And yeah, Day-Lewis is a fantastic actor. I mean, the the baptism scene is really when he when he wins the Oscar and shows like why he is fantastic. But I really love him in this ending. And I just love the fact that it just ends with him saying, "I'm finished." Like, it's great. It's perfect. It's an awesome ending.
Yeah, Day-Lewis is my number one performance of all time. So pretty much any scene that he's involved with in this movie is, could be top 100. For me, I chose the I've abandoned my child scene, and we talked about that earlier. It's kind of like, obviously you think of both of those scenes when you think of this movie, and sure, I could have put both of them on my list, but it's like it's the same sort of thing because they're like mirror image scenes of each other in a way. So it really only felt like, well, do I really want to take up two spots with these two scenes, or can I just sort of talk about one? So that's the reason it didn't make my list, but obviously it's brilliant.
All right, Jake, you're 31.
My number 31. It's a little bit of a spoiler, so if you have any interest, then mute or don't listen. But it is the Wonderwall sequence from Mommy. So if you have not seen this movie, just giving you a heads up right now. 3, 2, 1. Okay. So this whole movie, Xavier Dolan, I'm a big fan of him, and he loves making movies about mother and son relationships. This is his magnum opus, in my opinion. Diane has a son named Steve who has ADHD. He's really aggressive. He gets into trouble a lot. And this whole sequence is finally things are going right. The whole movie is presented in a 1:1 aspect ratio. It is a box. And during the scene, Oasis's Wonderwall plays. And as Steve is skating on the street, he opens his arms out and the entire aspect ratio goes out. And finally, you can just breathe a sigh of relief. Everything's starting to make sense. It's the three characters of Diane, Steve, and Kyla, who's basically homeschooling Steve and trying to get his education better. And it's just finally things are making sense, and things are getting better for them. Diane has a job, cleaning houses. Steve is getting better with his education, and Kyla is starting to speak better. She has a stutter, and she's finally being able to kind of and more of an introvert, and is finally being more of herself. And things just finally are just making sense for these characters. And this is like a good 30, 40 minutes in. And as everything starts to go right, Diane gets a letter from the school, and she's being sued by one of the parents of a kid who Steve had burnt in a fire. And as she reads the letter, the aspect ratio goes back to the 1:1, and things are just back to being miserable in the reality that they're in. An absolutely fantastic sequence. And I think just the fact that Wonderwall is a great song, but I'd never really seen it used in a movie before. And the fact that, this is like an art film, essentially. The fact it uses a popular song like Wonderwall is completely unexpected. And just really well done and executed in a way that I've just had never seen before. Dolan really likes playing with the aspect ratio. He did that in a movie he did called Tom at the Farm, which I highly recommend. But in this scene is just the emotional resonance of it, I think, is really powerful. And finally, you just feel good for these characters. You are mute.
I'm muted. Anyway, here's Wonderwall. I think that Wonderwall is... I got a reaction backstage from that one.
Shut up, bitch!
Anyway, here's Wonderwall. I think that this scene is really great. It made me want to watch the movie, which is why I was a little bummed that you said that this was a spoiler, because I actually really like this scene. So a little bummed it spoils the movie for a little bit, but I'm not one usually too affected by spoilers, so I think I'll still enjoy it. But yeah, I really like this sequence. Has anyone else here seen the movie?
No, but if it's the movie I'm thinking of, it's been highly recommended by someone I went to high school with, so I'm very excited to watch it. I just have to actually watch it.
That was aggressive. I'm sorry, Jack. Scott, here.
It's okay.
You're last. Take
All
us.
right. This is
Bitch thinks it's logged it.
This was a previous yikes. It's the listening booth scene from Before Sunrise.
That was on my list. That was on my list. Yeah.
Yeah. one of the most romantic scenes from the most romantic trilogy, the best trilogy, in my opinion, of all time. And there's not a word spoken in the scene. It's just Jesse and Celine having gone into this record store, seeing that there's a little listening booth, and they decide to listen to, I don't even remember whose record it is. But they're listening to this song. Okay. And they are basically just standing very close to each other because it's a very, small area. And the whole scene is sort of them listening to the song, but also like looking at each other, but then trying to hide the fact that they're looking at each other from the other person. And it's just a perfect encapsulation of like when you are first, falling for someone, and, that intimacy that they have there, but also like the shyness that they still have because they don't know each other so well yet. And so they're trying to sort of be coy about it, right? They're feeling out the situation. They're not like trying to dive all in. But at the same time, this is also the moment where they start to realize that, oh, maybe this could be something more than just a, one night stand, so to speak. Like that maybe there's something like meaningful, but also at the same time kind of scary that's going on here because of how close they feel to each other in this scene. And of course, Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy are doing tremendous work with just their faces and everything in this scene. But there are a lot of moments like this in the trilogy where, a look or a gesture conveys so much. That's what makes the trilogy so brilliant, among many other things. But this is kind of the one that sets it off. And when you're watching something really special, not just as a film, but watching a special relationship develop as well.
Yeah, and I had this at number. What did I have that? Sorry, bear with me. 58. Yeah, I love it for pretty much the exact same reasons as Scott has been saying. Just the eye play, I guess you could say, the way they just sort of get glimpses of each other, I just think is done so well. Celine is like just a little bit more subtle at it than Jesse. And also the song, Come Here by Kath Bloom, really well done and just like tonally works for the scene. But it's just the fact that it's so simple and it's like in its presentation and execution, and the way they're just getting like glimpses at each other, I think is really done well and sort of like starts a sort of intimate sort of connection that the two characters have. It's my favorite scene from the trilogy. There are many great scenes, but this is my favorite by far.
This is a solid scene. I think this is a great way to do like romantic tension between two characters of like they're clearly interested in each other, but they're trying to like figure out what this is. I think you described it perfectly, Scott. Yeah, great scene. Cody, Jack.
This scene almost made my list. I've said before that I'm hit and miss on Linklater so far. This one's a hit for me. I do really enjoy this film. It almost made the list, so I'm glad it made Scott's and Jake's. A good pick.
I don't know. Again, I would have a really hard time deciding on a scene from these movies because of just how long, it's just like a conversation between them. Mainly, I know there are scenes, but like it feels cohesive. So I feel like I have to pick the movie almost. I can't pick just the scene because I rewatched the scene. I was just like, I get it, but I don't know if I would put it this high or even on my list because I don't know if there's better. I wouldn't say there's better scenes. I just ones that stick out to me, I guess.
Valid. Well, with that, I think we're ready to take it home. So, the four lists. Do I go last place to first or first to last? Is first to last? Okay. First place is Cody. It was close. Scott almost snuck in at the end there, but I think Cody just didn't really have any misses, to be honest. Like, there were a few scenes, like Remember the Titans, where it's like, that's not really my pick from that movie, but there's nothing really bad that I could say about any of the scenes on his list. All good scenes. Second place, Scott. Scott was close behind there. I think really just there were scenes that I just like auditioned for Mulholland Drive was just and I wasn't really able to speak on Phoenix too much, so just not quite as many, but the stuff that was good was good. Third place is Jack had some good scenes in there, but he also had like the Logan scene. What?
Jake got robbed. It's
fine. Sorry, Jake, you had a bad week. I don't think the outcome would have been that different had Kirk been here, at least for how your list would have gone. Honestly, Kirk probably would have been a little more aggressive about the Jackass scenes if we're being realistic. So honestly, thank you.
He threatened to let him not talk after that. So yeah, you're right.
Thank God that Kirk wasn't on for this week, because he would have banned me like right away if I started talking about it.
I mean, it's probably going to affect your overall list, but you're
honestly, if the two Jackass scenes and I guess kind of the transponding scene are the only reason.
Anyway, we're going to wrap it up. So I'm sorry, I'm getting the signal from the person backstage.
I don't give a shit who he is. He does not. He can leave anytime he'd like.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I
don't do a rush show for any reason at all.
Okay. Well, I was getting the signal from your producer. So anyway, thank you to Jack. Thank you to Cody. Thank you to Jake. Thank you to Scott. Thank you to everyone for watching. This has been Multiplex. Your list sucks. Thank you, and good night.
Going to intimidate me. I'm entitled to my opinion.
Drunk, get angry. Come on, break the lousy cup. Ow! I hurt my arm.
And not expect everybody.
I'm going there soon, you know.
Is that so? Where are you going?
Uruguay.
Well, you go Uruguay and I'll go mine.